That is a bald-faced lie, Saris. Do not lie to me. I was there. They continue to have a much longer dialogue than you would expect from someone who is literally already dead, but also now actively dying. You'd think that they would have a little bit less diaphragm support for this kind of lengthy conversation. But regardless, this was traditionally published, right? I didn't just make that up in my head. Did no one read this at all before it was published? I could do with not getting constant status updates for how your member is doing. Keep it in your pants, literally and literarily. You're allowed to stop baring your teeth at the world and take a breath, because I've got you. Like, maybe she wants to bare her teeth. Seems like that's kind of her thing. Tal had been able to manipulate most liquids. All liquids, in fact, apart from Quicksilver. Blood was a liquid. Thanks. Never occurred to me that blood was a liquid. Thank you so much. I didn't even know how to describe what it felt like to have this male looking down at me like he was feeling everything I was feeling. Callie, darling, you are an author. Your entire job is to describe what it feels like. Please stop copying out by saying, I don't know how to describe what it feels like. Just describe it. Use the words at your disposal. Please, for the love of gods. Almost exactly 1 year ago, I read Quicksilver by Callie Hart, and what an experience that was, truly. I think of it fondly. I had so much fun reading it because it was so ridiculous, and especially knowing that I was going to get to share that absolute unhinged silliness with all of you made it even better. And y'all didn't disappoint in the comments. I still to this day get comments on that video a year later and laugh because it's truly a ridiculous book. It just is. What can I tell you? And we took on that suffering together, which really means a lot to me. In the last couple of weeks, I have read a number of books that, while they're amazing and they were incredible, I highly recommend you check out those reading vlogs. I'll link them down below. But they also devastated me on a deep cellular level. I'm experiencing one of the most intense book hangovers I have had in a hot minute. And as I was racking my brain to figure out anything that might remedy this situation, I remembered that Brimstone by Callie Hart just came out. Y'all, this is the perfect balm to my broken heart. I am so excited to do a somewhat unfair, probably, hate read of this book. Now, I haven't read it yet. I don't know. Maybe it'll turn out to be a million times better than Quicksilver, to the point where I will eat my words. But also, if I'm being honest, I have seen more than my fair share of reviews of this book, and it seems like even people who loved Quicksilver hate this. So I feel like that's not going to happen. Either way, I think I'm going to have fun, and it'll break me out of this morose moping around, not able to stop thinking about the characters I grew to love so much, who went through so much pain and suffering, and I want to hug them, but they're not real, and so the cycle continues, kind of feeling that I've been in for the last week or two. I want ridiculous characters doing ridiculous things that I can make fun of with my whole chest. So if you want that too, feel free to join me in this review. Don't bother telling me that I'm being mean with this review, okay? Callie Hart is doing great. She has sold so many copies of her books. She's riding high. She's doing amazing. So proud of her. May she write forever. I am but a drop in the bucket of reactions to this book, but I need a pick-me-up. I just need a book that's gonna make me laugh and probably bash my head against the wall at some point, and also rant to my husband for hours and hours, even though he has zero context for this book or this series whatsoever and does not care. You know, balance. Unlike my regular reading vlogs, I'm not going to hold back in this one. I'm just going to go full spoilers, because I already have to spoil the first book to talk about this book at all. And honestly, I kind of just want to. I just want to talk about everything from the outset and not worry about not spoiling people. If you don't want to be spoiled, this is not the video to watch. Okay? Okay, we're on the same page. Let's just get into it, okay? And to kick us off, I thought it'd be fun to read the first line together. So let's do it. Hell is empty and all the devils are here. The Tempest, William Shakespeare. That is quite the comparison to draw to your own writing, Callie. I mean, love you, girl. But Shakespeare? Okay. It's fine. Then we have a map. I will never look at that again. Then we have a pronunciation guide. I will probably look at that again, so I'll tab it. Fine. Prologue. Kingfisher. So sorry. I know I said that I remembered everything vividly as if I read it yesterday, but to be totally honest, I forgot that his name was Kingfisher. That is such a dumb name. Okay, I'm over it. Prologue. Kingfisher. A wolf was a versatile creature, adaptable. When part of a pack, it was part of something larger than itself. It had a role to play and a place in the way of things. There was safety to be found in a pack, but a wolf could survive alone too. In the dead of the midnight forest, surrounded by predators on all sides, a wolf could slip like a shadow through the trees. He could take refuge in darkened corners, stalking prey of his own. He could wait out his enemies and bite back when they struck, especially when he held a godsword in his hands. I would posit, just chime in here, I do think that wolves don't have opposable thumbs, so I highly doubt that said wolf would be holding a sword of any kind, let alone a godsword, but fair, fine. Not only do I love, and by love I mean despise, when books try to make something very obvious that all of us are highly aware of sound profound, but also it is very funny to me that Hart says, when part of a pack, it was part of something larger than itself. Yeah, that's what being part of something means. Oh God, this is going to be great. This is really going to be great. I made the right choice for my life today. I was ready for the vampire when he came. He had been trailing me like a wraith through the echoing halls of the Amontreath. Okay, wait, I already have to go back to the pronunciation guide. How do you say that again? Amontreath. Oh, that's how I said it. Great. Since I'd left Ceres's chambers. Okay. Am I wrong that if you have a word that ends with an S, you don't add another S, you just add the apostrophe? Is that like an outdated grammar thing that shows my age, or is that just the rule? Are there multiple rules? I'll look it up, or I'll forget. Or you'll just tell me in the comments. Either way, Ceres's with an S and then an apostrophe and then another S feels excessive. I lost my train of thought. I was ready for the vampire when he came. He had been, oh yeah, there are vampires. Did you forget? I didn't forget. That's one of the most ridiculous things from book 1, that there are fairies and vampires and also kind of zombies all in one. And also I'm pretty sure Ceres is a vampire fae now, right? I think so. Reading the living took no great skill. There were those who had spent centuries honing their ability to control their feelings. It paid to ensure your thoughts and feelings remained private as a member of the Fae. But no matter how practiced a person was at hiding their feelings, how many times do you have to say, hide your feelings in one single paragraph? We get it. Oh my God. Their bodies always gave them away in the end. It was unavoidable. Emotions painted the blood. Happiness, anger, sorrow, lust. Each gave off its own energy, a vibration, if you will. In the same vein, each of them had its own scent. The Fae betrayed subtle indications of their moods, no matter how good they were at masking their emotions. Again, we're really stuck in this point of hiding your feelings, masking your emotions. How many times do you have to say it? I feel like this whole thing could have been, not that everything, I feel like I have to bring this up every time I complain about how repetitive some prose is. I'm not saying that writing has to be as efficient as humanly possible for it to be good, because obviously you're allowed to repeat things for emphasis or, wax poetic from time to time. I just feel like this is so awkwardly repetitive when you don't have to say it the same thing so many times in so many ways to get your idea across. Like there's a way to consolidate some of this, right? Just me? The sense humans gave off could be overwhelming at times. Humans were not good at taming their feelings. They felt everything so rudely, right out in the open, with no awareness of how their reactions might affect those with finer senses. The dead were a different story. Without a beating heart, their blood was barren black slurry in their veins. The only time a member of the Sanisrothian, back to the pronunciation guide. First of all, how is this a pronunciation guide? It's the words spelled slightly differently with dashes between each syllable, which is great and all, except also there are multiple ways to pronounce these combinations of vowels and consonants, and there's no indication of where the emphasis should be, so I feel like this is not nearly as useful as it should be. Sanasroth, sure. The only time a member of the Sanisrothian court gave off any scent at all was after they had fed, when the spark of life that lingered in their victim's blood still echoed with the emotions they had felt as they died, like the faintest trace of perfume that lingered after a hug. Wait, sorry. That simile is so funny. You're literally comparing the Walking Dead consuming a living being and therefore carrying the scent of emotions in their blood to faint trace of perfume that lingers on you after you hug someone. It's like the least appropriate simile to use in this context I could possibly think of. But fantastic, amazing, incredible. An hour ago, my head had been full of petrichor as I'd sat next to my mate. One of the few things that I've paid attention to in regards to this book is people complaining, even those who loved book 1, I'll have you note, the amount of times that mate is used in this book. I'll definitely search it later. That's the great thing about an ebook, but I will also highlight it every time I come across it because that's fun. Definitely have nothing against calling your female humanoid partner your mate. There are no further implications there. Check out my video essay on romantasy if you want to hear more thoughts on that topic. But anyways, ever since she'd woken, she'd been relentless, trying to understand, to prepare, to ready herself for what was to come. The foundations of our plan were laid, and Ceres understood the part she had to play in carrying them out. But she was nervous. Why? there's an ellipses here and each dot has a full space in between it. That's not what an ellipses looks like. Why? When you type 3 dots, not only do they not automatically have spaces between them, because why would they, unless you have to like intentionally do that, but also if you type 3 dots, it'll make it an ellipses, which is the spacing is different than just 3 periods in a row. But also definitely not whatever abomination this is. Were you raised in a barn? It just occurred to me that I'm just reading this first chapter to you. For some reason, I thought it was going to be like a page as a prologue, and then we were going to get into it. But actually, this is quite long. So I'm not going to do that anymore. What I shall do is finish at least this paragraph. The foundations of our plan were laid, and Saris understood the part she had to play in carrying them out. But she was nervous, considering that she had been human only days ago. She was already far more accomplished at tamping down her feelings than she had been. But my nose was sharper than most. I'd sensed her hesitation. It was like the scent of hot stone after rain. A few things. First of all, I am now also vividly recalling how much the first book talked about how strongly Kingfisher could smell various aspects of things, including his mate's arousal, which is something that I find deeply unsettling. So put a pin in that. Also, this simile, once again, I have a feeling that I'm going to have a simile problem with Brimstone. It's already starting strong. Like the scent of hot stone after rain. The scent of a hot stone? Just hot stone. Is hot stone... I'm throwing my stylus already. Is hot stone a thing? It's not capitalized, so it's not a proper noun. It's not a place or something. In what context would this sentence not have before hot stone? Also, what does this mean? Her hesitation was like the scent of hot stone after rain. In what way does the scent of presumably a hot stone after rain? Also, why is the stone hot? It's like a hot day. The sun heated up this one particular stone, and then it rained on the stone, and that's the smell of whatever that smell is. I mean, I'm not a fae, so I don't have these heightened senses. I don't know. Maybe hot stones in rain do have a scent. A very distinct one. But why would that scent be the scent of hesitation? I feel like the point of similes is supposed to be to give you another way to understand what's being said, to allow you to imagine the thing that the author is describing in more vivid detail. But this simile just makes me confused, adrift in an ocean of words that have no connection to one another. Why would you do this to me? And on that lovely note, after speaking for almost half an hour on the first 3 pages, I'm gonna go read this by myself, in silence in my own head. And when I get to the 25% mark, wherever that may be, I'll be back and we can go through the things without me reading the whole book aloud to you, because this is not an audiobook. Just got a little carried away. I'm excited. Can you tell? I hope you are too. Okay, bye. I'll be back and I'll smell like hot stone after rain. Honestly, I feel like that would make a good perfume. Whatever that smells like, I still have no idea, but it sounds fancy. Not be able to achieve the perfect glass skin of a vampire fae hybrid, but I can come darn close. And that's thanks to the sponsor of this video, Foreo, and their incredible FAQ 202 LED mask. The FAQ 202 LED mask has 8 different wavelengths, including NIR, to tackle signs of aging and other skin concerns. It's made with this unique flexi-fit silicone, which makes it really adjustable for different faces. I have a gigantic head. You probably can't tell from home because there's no comparison of other heads in the frame, but I have a huge head and a big face, and I was a bit concerned about this fitting, but it molds to my face perfectly. I get nice even coverage even around the edges of my face. It's super lightweight, flexible, and wireless, so you can wear it comfortably around the house without being tied to an outlet. Or if you're like me, spend hours and hours trapped by a cat reading somewhere. The FAQ 202 LED mask is super easy to connect to the Freo app, and you can use the app to run their pre-designed treatments or to pick and choose the wavelengths and strengths of LED light that you want to use to target your own skin concerns. And the mask is effective in a short period of time. You don't have to wear it for hours a day. Freo recommends you use the mask for just 5 to 15 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week. The FAQ 202 offers a professional at-home experience and is designed for visible, lasting results. I'm in my early 30s, and I definitely noticed a big shift in my skin around the time that I turned 30. I've definitely noticed a difference in my skin in the months that I've been using the FAQ 202 LED mask, especially in the areas that I am most concerned about with my skin, which would be dullness, uneven skin tone, redness, hormonal breakouts at the same time every single month, and some of the very earliest signs of aging, especially a little bit of a loss of firmness and plumpness in certain areas of my face. Not only am I noticing a more even skin tone, less redness in my cheeks, and that my hormonal breakouts heal faster, but I also feel that after a treatment, especially when I use Freo's FAQ Red Light Peptide Serum, my skin feels plumper and more hydrated and just has this refreshed feeling to it. When I'm done with the mask, I just quickly spray it with their cleaning solution, wipe it off with a clean cloth, and plug it into charge so it's ready to go when I want to use it next. Be sure to check out Freo's amazing spring sale deals by scanning this QR code or clicking the link in my description box. And don't forget to use my code 30bride for an additional 30% off almost all products. And that's a stackable code, so you can use it on sale items too. Thank you again so much to Freo for sponsoring this video. So I just finished chapter 13, lucky chapter 13, and I'm now 26% of the way through this book. So let's talk about it. In the prologue, I'm mostly just finding the writing so overly dramatic for no reason. So we are following Kingfisher to start. He started by talking about how he's a lone wolf and he's so powerful and on and on and on. It was sniff out, literally sniff out hence the wolf metaphor, I guess, a undead and have some witty banter back and forth with a person they just murdered about ruining the velvet with their blood, because of course he did. They continue to have a much longer dialogue than you would expect from someone who is literally already dead, but also now actively dying. You'd think that they would have a little bit less diaphragm support for this kind of lengthy conversation, but regardless, as this guy is winding down and bleeding out, he says, "I'm sorry, I just couldn't face." And then we're in Kingfisher's head and he thinks, the sun? Fire? Fire wasn't such an easy thing to come by in this place. A vampire would go up like a pile of dry kindling if it encountered flame. The hearths burned with even light and Ementreath. It's just such awkward world building. Why is it like this? I remember the first book being like this too, where a character in their own internal monologue or in dialogue with someone else who would obviously already know this, going on a long rant explaining very basic aspects of their world, which is just not how real people talk or think. The over-explaining irks me. It irks me. And it goes on for far too long. It wasn't an easy way to go. So painful, so dramatic. The ash was better. It was a mercy. You have saved me from what? Ellipses. I have, ellipses, become. He wheezed. There was gratitude in his eyes. Relief. And then, of course, Kingfisher can't let this dude just die relatively in peace. He has to be an asshole every moment of every day. And he has to punch down, even as this sad dude breathes his last breath. I don't do it for you. I do it for those you have feasted on. Enjoy hell, tick. Ooh, burn. He's a tick because he drinks blood, even though Kingfisher's mate is now a vampire and also drinks blood. I also love the description. Again, this vampire's death goes on for so long. We're now on page 2 of slowly dying and continuing to have dialogue. And we get this gem. The vampire collapsed. A vampire no more. His teeth hit the floor. And then we get this lovely dash. Plink, comma, plink, exclamation point, which is just the most joyful little onomatopoeia for no reason. Plink, plink, of his teeth hitting the floor. Also, if the vampire has collapsed and is on the ground, do the teeth really have that far to fall? Would they really make plinking sounds? What's the ground made of? I don't know. Maybe it's really, really hard stone and a tooth would make a plink exclamation point sound, even if you were literally lying on the ground and in the midst of desiccating, although he was desiccating like 4 paragraphs before this point. How was he? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We continue to get multiple more plinks because his teeth are now bouncing down the stairs. So we get plinkalypses, plinkalypses, plinkalypses. Thank God we only got 3 planks. I didn't have to continue to write out the planks down the entire flight of stairs into the depths of the palace. Of course, just as he's hit his limit for any contact with anyone other than his mate, Carrion shows up, his favorite person of all time, and for some reason is very adamant that Kingfisher follow him to the window to see something that's happening, but will not tell Kingfisher what's happening, even though if he told Kingfisher what was happening, Kingfisher would be much more likely to follow him to the window and also do what he wants him to do. But obviously he couldn't just tell him. He needs Kingfisher to come to the window to look. We will see very soon that he didn't actually have to go to the window. Carrion could have just told him, and also they wasted time by going to the window in the first place. Also, so many unnecessary italics, and in general, actually, this is a great time to talk about the writing style and the things that are pissing me off the most about the writing style. I will read examples as we go, but not only does Hart have a hard-on for italics and use them liberally and try to force you to read all the dialogue in a very specific way by forcing you to emphasize certain words through italics in a way that I'm finding infuriating, but she's also trying to micromanage the pacing and the emotional beats by using so many short, choppy sentences and also using the dreaded single word sentences each on their own line to really make you slow down and read them and be dramatic. And I hate that so much with a burning passion. Let me read the book, okay? Just let me read it. Let me read it at my own pace. Let me interpret how they're saying things based on the way you describe the characters to be and the situation and the subtext and the way you describe their facial expressions and so on and so forth. You don't have to force feed me the exact way every line should be read, okay? Stop it. Stop it right now. I'm also only 7 or 8 pages in, and I'm starting to question the choice to highlight every instance of the word mate and male and female because it's going to be almost every sentence. So that's fun. Again, now we're 4 pages into this interaction, I think. Carrion, who was the best part about the first book, so I have a lot of patience for him, but still, holy shit. Just tell Kingfisher what you saw, for the love of God. And we finally get to a window after several pages of leading up to this for no reason. And Hart adds this for no reason whatsoever. The view it afforded could easily have been too narrow to display the source of Swift's anxiety, but mercifully, that wasn't the case. It could have been too narrow, but it wasn't. Thank gods. Okay, great. Why did you have to include that fact? He finally saw what Carrion saw. Ceres's tiny little fox friend, Onyx, who was actually a white fox named Onyx, which is very annoying. I forgot this from the first book, but I'm annoyed again. Running across a barren field, being chased by zombie vampires who want to drain it dry. And obviously Kingfisher, though he is not a particular fan of this fox, knows that his mate will be pissed if the fox is murdered. So he knows they have to go save the fox, which is also what Carrion knew as Ceres's best friend, apparently. Except again, he wasted so much time making it more harrowing and dramatic for no reason whatsoever. How many minutes have they wasted? If the fox dies, it is 100% Carrion's fault. Also, another thing that I hate about the writing is how repetitive it is. There are so many instances of this. He'd left the safety of Kalish for her. He'd climbed the mountain for her. He'd snuck through Irin and crossed the river for her. And now he was being chased across the dead fields of Sannisroth by a horde of feeders. He must have been tired and ready to give up, but he was still coming. Can you guess what it says next? For her. And each time her is italicized. As if adding for her at the end of each of these sections wasn't enough for emphasis, we have to also italicize it. Like, we get it. We get it. The fox is coming for her. Thank you. We know. It's been 2 pages. They're still trying to reach the fox. It's a big field. And they're getting closer now, and we're still in Kingfisher's head. We're almost there, Carrion bellowed. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw cracked. Hold on! There was no stopping. If we stopped, we died. I grabbed a fistful of Bill's mane and prayed to the gods I hated for the second time in less than a week. I'd have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure he's talked about praying to the gods more than twice in this single prologue, which we're only 12 pages into. But okay. Save the fox. Save Bill. Save the fox. Save Bill. Please. First of all, why do you have to save Bill? Keep Bill from being murdered as you were trying to save the fox? Sure, but Bill is not currently in danger. You are riding Bill into the fray. Obviously, I would prefer if Bill didn't get hurt. I am team no animal get hurt by the feeders at all. But you don't have to save Bill from anything. You are bringing Bill into danger. If they're not in the same situation currently, whatever. While spittle foamed at the feeders' mouths, their mindless baying filled the air as we drew closer, closer, closer. Save the fox. Save Bill. Okay, we get it. Gods and fucking murders. Obviously, at the end of the first book, we met characters who are at least claiming to be the gods, so we know that there are gods in some capacity. But I don't remember anyone literally ever talking about who these martyrs are or giving us any more information about the religions at play from which these curses of gods and martyrs and gods and sinners are coming from. Is it just like general martyrs and sinners over the course of history? Or are there specific ones? I don't know. It never comes up. He made the point of the second time in a week, I've prayed to the gods I hate. And then at the end of the section, sending one last prayer to the gods. And we rode like the wind. Like, okay, sure, buddy, you're praying a lot to these gods that you apparently hate and apparently also never pray to. Of course, we're already getting to enjoy Kingfisher's toxic masculinity. Only on page 15 of the prologue. And the day you save me on a battlefield, I'll put on a dress and dance a fucking jig. Because obviously the worst thing he could possibly think of, the most embarrassing, the way that he could be brought the most low in front of Carrion would be to dance a jig in a dress. The horror, right? I also love that he goes on to say, if anything had happened to him, then what? Saris would have been pissed at me, pissed in italics, and like pretty sure she would have been more than pissed at you if you killed Carrion or allowed Carrion to die, just because you find him a little annoying. We're also already introduced to the many, 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 I can already attest for the first 25%, but I'm sure for the rest of the book as well, the many times that someone's jaws clench or a muscle in their jaw jumps or ticks or works in some way, shape, or form because it is the most manly way to show some sort of emotion without actually having to show emotion, because that would be the antithesis to manliness, obviously. So we get a little more of that here, a muscle jumping in his jaw. We're also getting a lot of recaps of book 1. So if I had been worried about forgetting anything from book 1, I should not have worried, because we are getting so many info dumps. How we got here, how Saris killed Malcolm and then was turned into a vampire. So now she's half vampire, half fae, and she's going to become the queen of the vampire court because she killed the previous king. Also, it's not till page 20 that Kingfisher uses his nickname for Saris that I had somehow totally wiped from my brain, but he calls her Osha. How could I forget such a thing? It's such a stupid nickname. And I get it. It comes from like a butterfly or something in this world, but like choose anything else, make up a name. Anything other than Osha, it is so stupid. Also, Kingfisher prays again on page 20. How many times is that? At least 4 times on the page now. Gotta keep a tally going. I also love, and by love I mean hate, the number of times in either of Saris or Kingfisher's heads they just spend time thinking about how hot the other one is. It happens at least once a page, just in case we ever forget that either of them are very hot. We could not be allowed to forget for a moment. Gods, she was so fucking beautiful. The moonlight painted her skin silver until she looked like she was glowing. Now, god bindings marked her hands and her wrists. They were wrapped around my wrists too. We were of one another, bound to one another in a way that felt strange and thrilling. There was so much more to be said. The weight of that hung between us, but the female I had been terrified to fall for simply nodded, trying not to smile. I see. And here I was thinking you changed your mind about Onyx. I tried not to smile too. I couldn't tear my eyes from her. Gods, she was fucking beautiful. See? 1 page later, have to remind us again. Oh no, I muttered softly. I still think he'd make a great hat. Kingfisher strikes again. Cannot resist being an asshole for more than a few pages at a time. Imagine having just saved the life of your mate's animal companion, her little fox friend who she adores, and making a joke about turning said fox into a hat. Charming. What a man. What a man. He couldn't be allowed to actually like a small, helpless animal because that would make him not manly, and he has to be manly all the time. Anyways, that's the prologue. Then we get into chapter 1. We switch into Sarris's mind. What is the most important thing for us to get immediately, to reconnect with our main character from the first book? What do we need to really drop in to Sarris and her point of view to feel like we are rooting for her through this journey, this difficult transition of her life? This is apparently what Hart thought we needed. The dress was made for sinning, black, strapless, sheer. The slit up the side was cut so high that there was no way I could have worn underwear. Fast forward a little. This was elegant, stunning, painfully sexy. I didn't recognize the woman in the full-length mirror of my dressing room, and there was a reason for that. The strange creature staring back at me wasn't a woman. Once she might have been, but now she was a fey vampire hybrid, touched by the gods. Don't worry though, it's not done yet. I was the same as I had ever been, and yet I wasn't. You're either the same as you have ever been, or you aren't. She goes on to talk about all the ways that she's different now, not the least of which that now she's half vampire, half fae, which is a pretty big difference. In the first book, we could not be allowed to forget for more than 5 seconds that Sarris was very thin. In this book, I don't think we're going to be allowed to forget that she is now curvy, but only in the right places. Immortality might have cleaved the meat from the bones of others and made them willowy, but I'm not like other girls. She doesn't say that, but I mean, the implication is there. It had filled out the parts of me, italicized, that Zilvarin had starved. My cheekbones were rounder now, my lips fuller, hips, breasts, ass. I'd had all 3 before, but now I really, italicized, had them. I also love that she has to remind us that she already had hips, breasts, and ass, okay? Even though she was very thin and had to remind us constantly how thin she was because she was starving to death, she still was curvy and very appealing to men, so don't get it twisted. But now her hips, breasts, and ass are even fuller than they were before because unlike everyone else who's ever been turned into a vampire, she got curvier instead of more lean because there's no reason, there's no explanation other than she has to be sexy, because of course she does, because even our female protagonist in a book aimed at a widely straight female audience, I can only imagine, has to be sexy for the male gaze. And have great hips, tits, and ass. I'm losing it. I am losing it. It makes sense in Kingfisher's head for him to find her attractive and to perhaps comment on it, but for her to self-objectify in her own brain and checking herself out in the mirror for paragraphs as the first thing that we're getting from her perspective in this book, as if there's nothing else that we could maybe want to catch up with her on, like, I don't know, how she's feeling about suddenly being an undead vampire? That's less important than her new cup size. Okay. Great. Perfect. And then, of course, the first line of dialogue we get in Sarris's section is Carrion coming in the door and saying, well, I suppose if no one else is going to say it, then I will. You look downright fuckable, Sarris Fane. 3 males occupied the large dressing room with me. Also, why did all 3 of them go into her dressing room? Like, it makes sense for her mate to go in, but her mate, her best friend, and also her maker, who she doesn't really know that well, all just coming into her dressing room as she's getting dressed unannounced feels inappropriate. I don't know, maybe not. Just a thought. 3 males occupied the large dressing room with me, each of them emitting so much testosterone that the air swam with it. In what way is that appealing? I would like to know. Cannot handle the level of heterosexuality dripping off of these pages. It is far too much. I just looked up some of these words because it already felt like mate, male, and female had come up so many times, and we're only in the first chapter. So this is for the entire book because I can only search for the whole book at once on my Kobo, but mate is used 203 times, and male and female combined 345 times. Also, cock used 24 times, and I went through and made sure that I wasn't including anything like cocky, like a cocky grin, or head cocked to the side. Literally just references to the actual, I don't know why I'm doing this, the actual anatomy 24 times. Solar plexus 7 times, not that many, but kind of weird. I've already noticed it in the first quarter. Per se, also 7 times. Again, not that many times for an almost 1,000-page book, at least on my Kobo, but that's, I mean, again, kind of odd. Fisher's dark, wavy hair tumbled into his face, flicking up around his ears. It had somehow grown longer in the past day or two. He felt bigger, too. Taller, broader, his presence even more imposing. Why? How? For what reason? He's not actually growing, is he? He just seems bigger every day? Is Sarah shrinking? Is she like Alice in Alice in Wonderland? Did she drink a potion? I don't understand. Ooh, also, I meant to look up how many times jaws came up. 76 uses of jaw. Jaw ticked. Her jaw was clenched. Muscle ticked in his jaw. Their jaw worked. The muscles in his jaw twitching. She clenched her jaw. He clenched his jaw. Clenching my jaw to the point of pain. Things are escalating. A muscle in his jaw ticked. Anyway, I won't read all 76 examples, but you get it. Also, there's been a lot of flaring nostrils so far. 17 times. And eventually Teladius, the vampire who made Saris into a vampire, steps in to stop Kingfisher from murdering Carrion for being a flirt. They were of a height, the two males, just as broad, just as fearsome, because again, everyone has to be equally tall and fearsome and huge, but also everyone's taller than everyone else. Also, there are so many spelling mistakes and typos in this somehow. This was traditionally published, right? I didn't just make that up in my head. It should be they were counterweights, perhaps, but we have there were counterweights, perhaps. Did no one read this at all before it was published? Because we're still in chapter 1, so you wouldn't have had to pay attention for very long to catch this. But anyway, they were counterweights, perhaps. Different sides to the same coin. Question. It's a question for some reason. But also different currencies. Why? You already described how your maid is all darkness and quiet brooding, and Teladius was light, his mood often easier than it had any reason to be. We get that they're equally broad and fearsome and tall, but also kind of opposites in personality and appearance. We get it. It's so much reiterating the same point, beating it until it's completely disintegrated into the ground. Vampire, fae, maker, mate. Again, we already know that one is a vampire and your maker, and the other is fae and your mate. Each word, its own sentence on its own line, so we're forced to read it slowly as if it's something profound and important, even though it's information we already had and don't need to be reminded of. And even if we did, we didn't need to be reminded so dramatically. Anyway, they continue to have a conversation. Teladius is trying to warn Kingfisher about things that are important to keep in mind to keep Sarah safe among all the vampires, and Kingfisher doesn't want to listen because he's an arrogant prick. He doesn't think that anyone else could possibly know anything that he doesn't know. And also, we get a bunch of info dumping about how the vampire court works. And basically what we learn is that they're very bureaucratic, but scary. Also, obviously this isn't in our world, but Brimstone is continuing on with the tradition of Quicksilver with having many anachronisms. I'm pretty sure that the first book talked about cliff notes. This book is talking about having a crash course, which again is something that emerged in, I believe, the 20th century, correct me if I'm wrong, and would not exist in whatever version of the world that this is, in my personal opinion. So basically at this point, we're getting our own crash course in how the vampire court works so that we understand it before they go to this meeting and try to get Saris crowned. She doesn't want to be queen, but they don't want there to be a void at the top and for someone else to fill it and be worse than her. So they need the vampires to allow her to ascend to the throne, as they should by tradition, because she killed their previous king, Malcolm. There's so much info dumping here. We're getting the entire structure of the vampire court shoved down our throats throughout this chapter. But we also get lovely redundant lines like this. I wasn't from here. I wasn't born here. Evalia was not my home. We heard you the first time, Saris. Thank you. I also love that apparently if Fisher is anywhere close to Saris, he fills her entire vision. All she can see is him, as if he were a mountain or something. Like, how big would you have to be to actually fill someone's entire peripheral vision unless you are literally standing so close that you're like pressing up against their nose? His huge frame filled my vision. Dark hair, strong jaw, and beautiful ink. My fool's heart had craved him more than my lungs had craved air, and now that he was mine and I was his, my need for him had only intensified. They're so dramatic. Also, here, not only do jaws work a lot, but apparently at this point, the muscles of his throat are working, which I guess means swallowing, like gulping in nervousness, but that's not manly and sexy, so you have to say the muscles of his throat were working, I guess. I don't know. Also, Saris is super special, not only because she is now half vampire, half fae, and because she's going to be the queen of the vampires, and not only because she somehow got the curvy vampire gene instead of the emaciated vampire gene, but also because she is immune to the effects of both silver and iron. So Good for her, I guess. Fisher's shadow magic, the wisps of black smoke materializing, skating over her skin, are both cold and warm. Why that detail? I don't know. How are they both cold and warm? Are some tendrils of smoke cold and others are warm? Is it just like a weird magic thing where they can be cold and warm at the same time? Because usually those are opposite things. I don't know. It's not explained, and there's no reason for it whatsoever. It just is. Apparently. He's creating a thigh holster out of his shadow magic, and he has to like grope her thigh to do so in front of an audience. They're not alone, by the way. His hands rested there on my thigh, strong and calloused, and he sucked in a sharp breath, shaking his head as he got to his feet. His pupils were blown wide open when he looked down at me. It's a thigh, Kingfisher. It's a thigh. Like, I get it. Thighs can be great. We love a thigh. But chill, please. For the love of God. They are horny 24/7. They're in heat all the time. If any, I also loved this, and by love, I mean hated. If any of them even look sideways at you, you stick that straight in their chests. I know how a dagger works, Fisher. Most couples flirted by making eyes at each other or complimenting each other's outfits. We did it by discussing how best to murder our enemies, because we're not like other couples. A smile ached at the corners of my mouth, begging to be unleashed. Like, you can just say, I wanted to smile, I held back a smile, or you could just smile. You're allowed to smile as you think about how you and your mate are so unlike other couples because you murder people together. And isn't that so much cooler than people who just compliment each other's outfits? Who would want to be those boring people? Look, can you just behave yourself out there? I can, he answered. I can't promise that I will, because again, he is a child. My mate's expression went dark with the promise of violence. The testosterone is very off-putting to me. And we get misogyny in the vampire world for no apparent reason. Both male and female vampires can be one of these 5 really important vampires, but they are only allowed to be called lords. They are the lords of midnight. It doesn't matter if they're female or male, they are lords. And then we proceed to spend a long time seeing how they interact, and it seems like the female lords are repeatedly referred to as having dramatics, being hysterical, and just generally have their opinions dismissed, both by the male lord vampires, but also by Ceres herself, because of course. Also, they describe all the other vampires in the room who are not feeders with a lean intelligence that shone from their eyes. Which, what does that mean? A lean intelligence? Like, lean as in meager? Like they only have a little bit of intelligence, only a little bit above a feeder, or lean meaning something else? Because lean is not usually an adjective that we would use to describe intelligence, right? Like, maybe you could say that she's trying to get at it being sort of a hungry, predatory sort of intelligence. You got that from them turning their hungry gazes at her already, so you didn't have to have it twice. I don't know. It's very vague. It's vague. Her words rang from the walls and rebounded amid the rafters, which is just a weird way to say that. It's echoed up to the rafters, echoed between the rafters. I don't know. She's talking about her father, Malcolm, the previous vampire king who Sarah's killed, and calls him Mighty Malcolm, which is just silly. Like, that sounds like what a kid would call themselves when they're playing make-believe as superheroes, but sure. Yet another example of how little this book was edited. We finished chapter 1, official chapter 1. I know, we're only at the end of chapter 1. How could it be? I don't know. Couldn't tell ya. Ceres says, I am no child. My name is Ceres Fane, and I am your queen. Except no one has called her a child up to this point. Literally no one has called her a child. No one's implied she's childlike in any way. No references to her being like a child whatsoever. So not sure where that came from. But then I found out very quickly, because in the next chapter, she is actually referred to as a child and a girl many times. So I guess she was just preemptively reacting to what they had not yet said. Because of course she was. You said it was cold as ice already, but you're repeating the frigid temperature. You said there was no cushion padding its seat, and now you're talking about how it's hard stone. Like, again, you don't have to tell us so many times the same things. You can just tell us once that it's hard and it's cold and we get it. But anyway, leached into my back and ass. Thought that she had some extra padding there now that she's turned into a very voluptuous vampire. So maybe she should be able to withstand an unpadded seat for more than 5 minutes, but what do I know? There's also a couple examples in this chapter of words being used that are technically correct, I guess, but just a very awkward choice. For example, the same thing that we had in the first book with just like random chorus members shouting things in crowd scenes, I guess to make it feel like there are more people there. No, they would never. Perversion, anathema. And it's like, really, anathema? First of all, just shouting anathema on its own, again, like technically you can, I guess. You would usually say she is anathema, not just shout anathema on its own. Like, it's kind of odd. And then the word anathema comes back again. So apparently it's just a word that Callie Hart really likes, even though it feels quite out of place and antiquated in this context, especially mixed with all the anachronisms that pop up all the time in the very casual language. But also we get the lovely misogyny of the male lords calling this female lord hysterical, saying that she's throwing a temper tantrum. And she's honestly not being that dramatic. Like, she's being a little dramatic, but honestly everyone in this book, in this world at large, is dramatic, so it's not like she's being more dramatic than anyone else. But Saris keeps thinking about how she would make a great actress, and she's just so over the top, even though, again, she's being probably less dramatic than Saris's own mate is literally every time he ever opens his mouth. I also forgot, not only before I picked this up, that Kingfisher's nickname for Saris was Osha, but also that he frequently called her Little Osha. And I just really hate that. I gotta be honest. She's not little. If she's almost 6 feet tall, even if she's smaller than you, she's not little. And it doesn't work as like an ironic joke. If her nickname for him was like Little Fisher, that would be more ironic and be kind of, subverting expectations because he's arguably not little and not little compared to her. But there are so many connotations coming from a man who is just arguably much bigger than her, even if she isn't actually little, where calling her little just feels infantilizing and dismissive, and I don't like it. There is one elderly lord lady vampire, and she starts rifling through Saris's memories, and of course one of the memories she picks is mid-coitus, so that she can think he was inside me and my soul was full of fire, and why? How is that useful? And then Saris goes on to reflect that it felt as if someone had been rifling through her pockets. How is it remotely like someone rifling through your pockets? Having someone literally rifle through your memories is a very different thing and much more invasive. You just told us that she was going through your memories. You don't have to give us some comparison for us to understand, but it's also just not like that. It's like earlier on, the comparison to the fragrance left after a warm hug, just being on a completely different scale than the thing it's being compared to the point that it is so useless. As a comparison. I also love that Saris turning it around on them and saying that they're bickering like children is enough to shock the entire Hall of Tears. All of these scary, scary vampires, they're stunned into silence because they've never heard a vampire say that someone else is bickering like children, even though we've literally just watched vampire lords argue with each other, claim that they're throwing temper tantrums and having hysterics. Like, how is this the thing that stuns them to silence? Why? I don't know. I need to move on because this is actually a very boring chapter where she just gets crowned. Oh yeah, spoilers, she gets crowned. They accept her as their queen. Were we thinking that they wouldn't do that? But she gets super offended to be called a virgin, and that just made me laugh because it's so stupid. Come on now, Teladius, the girl's a virgin. Excuse me? I couldn't help myself. Also, there's no quotations at the beginning of excuse me, but there are at the end. Like, there are just so many things missing. I don't think this was edited whatsoever. Regardless. Excuse me? I couldn't stop myself. My indignation erupted from me before I could reel it back. I assure you, I am not. Okay, girl, chill. Algat gave me a pitying look. Not of the body, child. Her head tipped toward Fisher again, the speed and angle of the motion making my stomach twist. We smell the sex on both you and your mate perfectly well, I assure you. No, you are a virgin of the blood. Okay, so, sorry, we've already established that they haven't had sex since she turned at least a few days ago because they keep crying about it because apparently they are horny 24/7. So you're telling me that presumably they have bathed in that time, but she can still smell the sex on them. How long does the sex smell last? Are all of the vampires and fae going around 24/7 smelling sex on literally anyone who's ever had sex? Because good lord. Actually sounds like a nightmare. How long does that smell last? But also just the ridiculousness of her being so offended and in front of a literal hall full of hundreds, if not thousands of vampires, sputtering over, she's definitely not a virgin. How dare you? Like, oh my God, girl. First of all, that's not what they're talking about. Second of all, why are you so mad that anyone might think that you haven't had sex? I don't understand. And again, more misogyny now coming from Saris. She talks about how Zavenna would make a great actress. She'd be hired by the traveling theater companies. The female was really beginning to annoy me. Thankfully, Teladius seemed immune to her dramatics. Like, again, you are equally as dramatic. Everyone in this world is equally as dramatic. Why are you picking on Zavenna specifically? Also, like, to be totally fair, she has good reason to not trust you as the leader of the vampires. You don't want to be the leader of the vampires anyway. You're just doing it because you don't trust them and you want to stop them from doing what they want to do. Obviously, she shouldn't trust you. She's not being dramatic about it. She's just telling it how it is. There is no way to win as a woman, even in fantasy written by women for women, apparently. I also love this paragraph. Amid all of this, the Hazrax's head turned from left to right, observing the scene as it unfolded. It said nothing, its odd gills flaring. With its hands clasped together inside the sleeves of its bone-white robe, it took everything in without saying a word, observing the scene as it unfolded, and then taking everything in, and also saying nothing, and without saying a word. I am starting to understand why this book is almost 1,000 pages long, because not edited at all, and everything is told to us at least twice, if not 3, 4, 5, or 6 times, possibly even more. Anyway, enough nitpicking. Basically, to become queen, they require her to drink the blood of someone, because she's a blood virgin. Not a sex virgin, don't get it twisted, but a blood virgin, yes. So they want her to drink blood before they will allow her to become queen. She decides to drink Kingfisher's blood, because why not? They make it sexual, because of course they do, even though, again, they're in a room full of hundreds and hundreds of vampires who want them dead. But Sarris tries to shut it down. Now is not the time. It sure as hell wasn't the place, but it will proceed to be the time and place because they will make it sexual anyway. So she sinks her canines into his flesh deep, so deep. Drink, Sarris, Fisher said in a ragged gasp. For the love of God's fucking drink, he begged. And she proceeds to drink. Fire chased through my veins. Need pooled between my legs, sending a rush of pleasure up through my body so powerful that I wanted to scream. I couldn't, though. I'd have to stop drawing from him to do that. And fuck Sarris. Breathless, mindless, desperate. Fisher's voice was thick with his own desire. Don't even think about it, or I'll take you right here, he panted. Holy fucking gods. My mate and I stared at each other, panting, our bodies tensed taut as twin bowstrings. The feeling coming through me was like nothing I had ever encountered before. It went beyond want. There were no words to describe it. I mean, are there no words to describe it, or are you just being lazy? It's more dramatic to say there are no words to describe it. You're not even going to try. Okay. We hadn't slept together since I'd woken. I'd still been sick from the transition and sore from the injuries I'd sustained in the maze at Gillithry. But now, fuck, I needed him now. We get it. Okay. And she's queen. Yay. That's the end of chapter 2. Then we switch to Kingfisher and we get a lovely paragraph that starts somewhat poetic, at least trying, and then proceeds to become so crass that the whiplash is unimaginable. There was a new tattoo on her chest, a thin black line that marked her skin from one shoulder to the other, right below her collarbone. Just a simple line, but somehow striking. Also, will they ever explain the logic of the tattoos, why and how the tattoos show up, what the symbols represent? Because so far, nothing. They feel like the aesthetic. Also, if they get a new tattoo every time they get horny while touching each other, will they end up just one full black work tattoo where their whole body is just black ink? Because they're going to run out of space pretty quick with the rate that they are fucking. Anyway, she was breathtaking as she turned and faced the hall, her eyes lit with a galaxy of stars. She was the center of that galaxy. I gravitated toward her anyway, but after what she'd just done, she had no idea what she'd done. My was the hardest it had ever fucking been, and I could barely think straight. And then literally on the same page, we haven't even progressed past this one page, we get my throbbed relentlessly as I turned around to face the hall. I don't need constant updates on how you're doing, Kingfisher. I truly do not. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about it in the actual sex scenes, but in between, I could do with not getting constant status updates for how your member is doing. Okay? Keep it in your pants, literally and literarily, please, for the love of gods. My poor little Osha was reeling from the effects of the bite, but not me. I had years on her. Oh, great. Bring attention to the age gap. Why don't you? Love that. Kind of weird vibes. They talk about one of the vampire lords having a hooked nose in the last chapter, and then in this chapter, Kingfisher refers to him in his mind as the beak-nosed bastard, which feels very pointed and off. They just crowned Sarris, but one of the lords doesn't want her to be queen, so he tries to kill her. But Kingfisher is obviously faster than the vampire lord who is literally right next to her, even though he is further away, because he's Kingfisher, and he's faster than anyone. So he cuts the vampire lord in half, and he dies. So there's that. I also love how the sort of thralls, I guess, not thralls, but vampires who are loyal to this lord who Kingfisher just murdered, run up to try to complete what their lord was trying to do. And Taladius, luckily, has this magic power where he can control liquids. And it says, Tal had been able to manipulate most liquids. All liquids, in fact, apart from Quicksilver. Blood was a liquid. Thanks. Never occurred to me that blood was a liquid. Thank you so much. And right now he was boiling the blood in the high blood's veins. I love the addition of blood was a liquid, just in case the reader doesn't understand how he could boil blood after literally just being told that he can control liquids. Ceres passes a law, an edict, that they cannot hurt her or her friends or else, and because she's queen, they have to follow what she says, at least for now, so maybe they'll be safe for a little bit longer. Kingfisher goes to walk it off because he's really turned on and doesn't have an outlet right now. And he goes to hang out with Renfis and Lorith. They're joking about their sword having mood swings worse than a Phalang whose balls are about to drop. And then Ren laughs, nodding up at Kingfisher. Funny you mentioned balls. Ask him how his are. I would just like to ask, do people with balls frequently ask each other how their balls are doing? Is that a thing? As someone without balls, I wouldn't know. I just find it odd, to be totally frank. So if you are an owner of a set of balls, or even a single ball, I don't discriminate, please tell me down below how often you discuss the state of your balls and other people's balls with those people. Because this is odd to me. Tell me what's wrong with your balls? I kid you not. Literally on the page. I am not making this up. How did you keep your shit together? Weren't you? He looked directly at my crotch. You know. Yes, I was harder than that fucking steel in your hands. Is that what you want to hear? Again, owners of penises, weigh in the comments. Do you often talk about your member being harder than the fucking steel in your friend's hands? Feel free to let me know, because I find this whole section of this chapter absolutely baffling and so out of place. And why? Why does it exist? We literally just watched this happen, and we also were in Kingfisher's head to hear about how hard his cock was and how it was throbbing, and now we're hearing him tell his friends about it. Like, we just experienced it. I didn't need to know the first time. I don't need to know again. Why do your friends need to know? And if you're going to tell them, which is fine, do what you want, you don't have to tell them in front of me as the reader. They have a very long conversation. They talk about their friend Foley. I don't remember if Foley came up in the first book. If they did, I forgot about them, to be honest. Can't have been that important. But they're really hung up on Foley, who is apparently a vampire now, and they would like to see Foley again. And I guess that's going to come up again because they're talking about it for a very long time. They've transitioned from the ball talk at this point. More info dumping, more world building just being shoved in here about why they're here and who they are and their relation to each other and what they want, which is basically to get their friends back and to make their land safer, mostly by eliminating or reducing the power of the vampires, if at all possible. And then they hear that there are feeders at the river. So we have to go have a battle now. So we're going to go have a battle. All of chapter 4 is this battle at the river with the feeders, who are weird feeders, who aren't acting like normal feeders by being weird. I feel like in the first book, the feeders were never normal anyway, because they kept telling us what the feeders could and couldn't do, and then immediately having the feeders do what they apparently couldn't do. Same thing happens here. Feeders apparently are supposed to be destroyed by fire immediately, but apparently these feeders don't die. I love this paragraph. Kingfisher and Lorith had returned, and they'd brought a bag of severed heads with them. It went without saying that the bag of heads should have been my primary focus, but apparently I was a terrible person, because the only thing I cared about was him. Fisher, my mate, was here, and it felt like I could finally breathe again. Perfect. We're just ignoring the bag of severed heads that are still animated, blinking, clacking their teeth, because your mate is back. And isn't that lovely? She's just taking a second to bat her eyelashes at him before we deal with the bag of severed heads. Anyway, they still have the bag of heads on the ground, but they're still not addressing it. And Carrion and Kingfisher are bickering again because they're like an old married couple from a sitcom and they never shut up. Apparently, Ceres is only just starting to find this irritating. She's a whole book behind me, the reader, but she's finally caught up. Good for her. This little back and forth feud they had going on was becoming borderline infuriating. Borderline? Girl, we passed borderline at least 600 pages ago. Are you serious? She's also somehow still not used to Kingfisher's voice in her mind. I feel like that's been a thing for a hot minute. Don't know how she's still not used to that, but fine. They only just suddenly realized that these feeders, the weird ones, don't have pointy ears, so they're human. They also have, at least one of them, a female, has the little cross tattoo behind her ear, which is the sign of sterilization, which is something that Ceres experienced. So they're from Zilvarin and are human, not Fae. So that's a whole thing. None of them noticed. None of these great, super smart Fae noticed. Carrion noticed. So apparently he's not a total useless waste of space. This was hard, loving him. I'd barely slept a wink all day, worrying about him. Some deep, unsettled feeling inside me had told me something was wrong in Irin. Also, I'm just picking pronunciations for these now because the pronunciation guide is worse than useless. So I'm just gonna decide as I go along. I hadn't pursued romantic connections back in Zilvarin, though I'd had plenty of opportunities to do so. Okay, Sarah's, thank you. This is in your own mind. In her own mind, she's thinking about how she didn't pursue romance back home, but she has to reiterate to herself that it's not that she didn't have the opportunity. Don't get it twisted. She had opportunities left, right, and center, okay? She just didn't want them. Who cares? And she's just thinking about how Fisher could possibly still love her because she's now everything that he detests. She's a vampire, and she's also a queen, and he hates royalty. This is going to be drama, for sure. Kingfisher also threatens that he will cut off any part of Carrion that ever touches his mate, which feels extremely dramatic when all Carrion did was touch her wrist, but sure. All right then, I take that to mean I should not attempt to touch your girlfriend. Oh, sinners, Lorith muttered under his breath. She isn't my girlfriend. She's my mate, Fisher said quite amicably. Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. She isn't my girlfriend. She's my mate, Fisher said quite amicably. And if any part of your body, literally any part of it, comes into contact with hers, then I will remove it. Oh, so amicable. Cute. They're like best friends now. We also will not, cannot, shall not stop talking about how everyone smells all the time. It's hard to concentrate on camp logistics when I can smell you across the room, though, Osha. I was going to die of embarrassment. You cannot. Across the room, I caught the flash of wickedly sharp canine as a suggestive smile parted Fisher's lips. Be under no illusion, little Osha. You are all I can smell. All is not italicized because everything else is. She's now the Lady of Kalish, and she hates that for some reason. She's like super uncomfortable with being the Lady of Kalish, and she's super surprised by getting that title, even though she's the mate of the Lord of Kalish, so I don't know why that would be shocking. She's also the Queen of the Vampires, but that's less shocking, I guess. Mate, Queen of Senisroth, King Killer, a tightness formed beneath Fisher's brows. They're calling you that? They are, and now you want to add Lady of Kalish to the mix? It wasn't that I didn't want to be his partner in all things. I did. But the past few weeks have been surreal. How is that the thing that you're getting stuck on? I don't understand. It feels so minor in the grand scheme of things. Lots of growling at each other. They're having a dinner party and it's not going well. Carrion is late because he's been having sex. And of course, everyone can smell he's been having sex. And that now we talk about it for a while. Because of course we do. This is what they'd all been smelling on me whenever Fisher and I were together. God's alive, that was mortifying. And then I also love that Danya is into Carrion. Strangely enough, she seems to be the only one who is inhaling deeply through her nose. Gross. Saris is thinking that, not me. Okay, Saris is confirming that it is gross to deeply inhale the smell of someone else's sex and be into that, especially while in public. Okay? So everyone who got mad at me in the first book for saying that I thought it was gross how often they talked about smelling sex on each other, Saris agrees, so it's not just me. So leave me alone. From the smell of you, you must be ravenous. Also, they start talking about them getting married, and that is a terrible shock to Saris. She can't believe anyone would consider them getting married, even though they're mates now, but fine. And Kingfisher really doesn't want to get married, and she doesn't know why. And he seems kind of conflicted, but also relieved when she says they don't have to get married. So that's going to be some kind of drama, I guess, now. And now we're getting into chapter 7, where we have our first sex scene. Yay! Because it's been so long since they had sex, and they really need to get out all of that tension, because Kingfisher's has been throbbing for chapters now. I needed some tea for fortitude and to keep me calm, because this scene is ridiculous and was raising my blood pressure. So, tea on hand, very hot still. Gotta let that cool down for a second. Also, I forgot to mention that she talks about not wanting to fumble this. Just another anachronism. I feel like, again, what time period is this? I don't know. This is a made-up world. But fumble this, I feel like Saris would not be familiar enough with team sports to be aware of this terminology, even if anyone could play team sports in the land she comes from that is full of people starving to death and having like 6 ounces of water a day or something in a world with 2 suns. So this chapter starts and they don't actually, honestly, surprisingly, they don't leave the marriage question as some unanswered thing that's going to cause a lot of strife and miscommunication through the whole book. They immediately address it. Very mature. Unexpectedly so. Fisher explains that he doesn't want to get married because to get married, you have to share your secret name, and he doesn't know his secret name, so he actually can't get married. She's like, we're godbound. That's far more significant than a wedding ceremony. We'll live our lives together and be happy no matter what, even though she was just getting like super stressed about the idea of getting married in the last chapter, but sure, she's trying to be supportive. He's like, you're sure? After clenching his jaw. Yes, I'm sure, I laughed. But then I sobered quickly, knowing what I was about to say. I love you, Fisher. It was the first time I'd said it. How is that the first time you've said it? Really? Did she not say it in the entire first book? I feel like Fisher talked about loving her already in this book. Has he been saying I love you a bunch and she's just never said it back? That's a little awkward. Anyway, I love you and nothing else matters beyond that. Wherever you are, I'll beg the gods and all the fates to let me be there too, I whispered. Because they've now had their sweet romantic moment, it's time to have their sexy get it on moment. And this really irked me. There are too many pricked ears in this god's cursed manner, he groaned. They aren't going to like what they hear over the next few hours. A shiver sank into my bones at that. He planned on being inside me for hours. Why is that what you would assume from that? Your assumption when he says that they're not going to like what they hear for the next few hours, your assumption is that he's going to just be inside you for hours, like park and bark. You're telling me that you have had sex however many times you've had sex, and your assumption when he says that you're going to be screaming probably for hours is that he's just going to be inside you for hours because there's nothing else he could possibly do to make you scream. Fisher needs to up his game. He's been alive for like 1,000 years. I am very glad in this case to be wrong. I mean, I'm not wrong that this was Saris's assumption, which causes me to raise an eyebrow or two, but I am proven wrong that Fisher doesn't know any other way to make her scream because he does, in fact, engage in foreplay. So thank the gods for that. Right? I also love how in leading up to their sex scene, she thinks about her brother for I think the first time in this entire book, kind of weird, and only in service of thinking about how she used to get high after her brother went to sleep. And then she stopped when she started feeling like she needed it rather than wanting it, just cause as we lead up to the sex scene, we definitely needed her to remember her brother in that case. She's not worried about her brother. He hasn't come up otherwise, even though all we knew about her personality in the first book, other than her being belligerent and being very desired sexually, is that she loved her brother. Not only was she not that concerned when he wasn't rescued for the entire first book, she's also not concerned that he's still back in Sylvarn in this book. So that's great. There's a lot of claiming going on. 41 uses of claim or claimed or claiming in this book. So there's that. He claimed her mouth. Pressing a hand into my back, he pulled me onto him, huffing a strained breath down his nose. For some reason, that's so funny to me. Huffing a strained breath down his nose. Anyway, he was hard. Everywhere. All of him. His chest was all packed muscle. His arms, wound tight around me, were bands of steel, and his question mark? I could feel just how hard that was, straining against his pants. The head of his erection dug into my stomach as he curved himself over me and rocked his hips forward, groaning. It's an interesting picture. That's all. 3 nights. That's how long I've paced this room, fantasizing about fucking you raw, Sarah's Fane. Oh, that's not... Ellipses. The past. Ellipses. 3? Question mark? I was praying you'd live all the others. Aw, so romantic. Oh, and then we get several sentences, separate lines, all in italics with a period after each little sentence fragment. Take me, claim me, fuck me, own me. Okay, calm down, Osha. Just kill me and be done with it. Nothing will ever be better than this. It's okay to enjoy sex, but you also can, keep having sex. That's the fun thing. If you enjoy it, especially when you have a partner and you get to know each other well, you can, keep having it forever. That's kind of the idea. You taste like the end of the fucking world, he purred. I have nothing to say about that. I just had to share it because I had to read it, so you also had to experience that. Thank you. You're much stronger than you used to be, he mused, but I'm still stronger, little Osha. And then we repeat that again 1 paragraph later, just in case we forgot that he's stronger than her. Are you particularly attached to those clothes, Osha? Yes, I laughed, trying to pull my hands free. He was right. I was stronger now, but he was always going to be stronger. My shirt didn't stand a chance. There's also a lot of ellipses and em dashes used throughout this to really emphasize that they're panting, I guess. This ellipses is hardly ellipses fair, I panted. You're fully clothed, and I'm naked as the day I was born. Bringing it back to the day you were born, invoking yourself as an infant is a weird thing to do in the bedroom. But also, I am almost certain that a scene like this happened in the first book where she was naked and he was fully clothed, and she complained about that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that exact scenario happened. Anyways, you would need to hate me pretty badly to conjure the kind of energy that would sever flesh and bone. There had been a time when I'd hated him that badly, but now, ellipses. That's a lie, Saris, and you fucking know it. You never hated him, not even once. Do not lie to yourself and do not lie to me, because I was there. And I suffered you pretending to hate him for hundreds of pages before you admitted that you in fact never did. Okay. Also, I feel like I remember Kingfisher going down on her in the first book. Like he definitely, in the tent, right? Didn't he go down on her in the tent and she hadn't showered and she was all embarrassed because she hadn't showered yet. And he was like, actually, I enjoy the rankness of your unshowered nether regions. And then he went down on her. I didn't just make that up, did I? Once again, correct me if I'm wrong. But she's acting like no one has ever gone down on her, but also that Fisher has never gone down on her. She seems shocked by this development, which again makes me question their interactions up to this point, but fine. Where do you think you're going? I sounded so breathless. Come now, Osha. I hate that nickname so much. It's even worse in the bedroom. It takes me out so much. Where else would an acolyte kneel to worship but at the altar of his God? Sinners, the heat of his tongue parted my flesh. That's also sounds like it means something different than you mean it. Anyways, and I lost the ability to think. It turned out that Fisher's altar was the sensitive flesh between my thighs, and I was his god. Holy shit, that feels incredible. Like, what do you mean? Why are you shocked that he meant you as his god and the altar was your... Once again, this is the 25-year-old woman who talked constantly in the first book about how everyone wanted her and how she'd slept around and was known to be like very sexy, desirable, and to know what she wants. And yet she is like totally shocked that he would want to go down on her. What kind of sex was she having in Sylvarin? I just want to know. So then we get her in her mind as he is pleasuring her saying, fuck, with 7 U's, which is at least 6 too many U's. It's too much. I was going to scream in italics. And then, of course, he gets her very close. I was going to hurtle face first over the edge. And then he did the unthinkable. He stopped because Saris has never heard of edging. Fisher, why? She is devastated. He chuckled darkly, the edge of his laughter rough as sin. Sure. Hold on, little Osha. I'm afraid it's time for a little payback. What? What does that Holy fuck. All one word with 5 H's between the O and the holy, and then 3 F's in the fuck, and then the uck of the fuck is capitalized. It's hard to describe just how much of a monstrosity this word is without showing you. Maybe I'll put it on the screen. Zoom in on that. Can you see that? Abomination. I bounded up from the bed so fast that my spine cracked. Maybe I'm just in my 30s now, but the idea of my spine cracking while getting it on sounds terrible. And then a white light filled her head. Yeah, because you're paralyzed. You just cracked your spine. Anyway, he's bitten her in the inside of her thigh and has started to drink. The gods only knew how much of his venom he'd injected into me at once, but I came on, period, the, period, spot, period. In italics. No sound, no breath, no thoughts. Just a mindless, body-wide orgasm that felt like it was about to break bone. Okay, everything up to this point has been poorly written, subjectively, in my personal opinion. But this is the first time that I have felt that it feels like it was written by an LLM. That feels like AI. And I'm not accusing anyone, okay? LLMs were trained on human writers, so I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but just listen to the pattern here. No sound, no breath, no thoughts. The rule of 3, and it's not this, it's this. No sound, no breath, no thoughts, just a mindless body-wide orgasm that felt like it was about to break bone. Again, not an accusation, not alleging anything. I just noticed it, and whoever wrote it, it's bad. I barely heard Fisher's satisfied drawl over the explosions going off in my head. That's it, with 3 A's. Again, good girl. Ride it out. If I never hear good girl during a sex scene again, it will be too soon. The last 15 times I was forced to read it were 15 times too many. Please stop. I know some people are into it, but I'm going to need all books with explicit sex scenes to start warning me ahead of time when they contain good girl, because I hate it so much. It gives me full body shivers in the complete opposite way that I think it is intended. I hate it so much with a burning passion. Please stop. Oh my God. Sorry. My pulse throbbed slow and hard at my temples. Dumb. D-U-M, period. And then it's not even just separate line breaks this time. Can you see? She hit enter 3 or 4 times between each time that she wrote dumb. D-U-M, period. Dumb. Dumb. Last time it's in italics with an exclamation point instead of a period. Dumb. That's her pulse throbbing slowly and hardly. Slow and hard at her temples. Easy. That's it. Breathe. Okay. The coaching you through it as if you've never experienced an orgasm before thing, also a thing that gives me the ick. Stop it. She'll be fine in 5 seconds. Just leave her alone, okay? You don't have to coach her through it like she's giving birth. What, ellipses, the hell just, ellipses, happened, in italics. You passed out, Fisher murmured into my neck. Passed out, in italics? Just a little. I don't like that. Let's not encourage the passing out mid-sexual interaction and continuing the interaction. That's like not a thing that we encourage here in this house. She's got to get her blood pressure checked or something. Need some electrolytes. As someone who used to pass out regularly. I also hate that they're calling back to one of my least favorite moments in the first book. I told you once that I was disappointed by how breakable humans were. Remember? Ugh. More talk about the solar plexus. The solar plexus only comes up like 7 times in this book, but I feel like all the mentions are within a 3-chapter period, and so it feels so excessive that you cannot escape it. He was hard, all right. Harder than I'd ever seen him. He was so God's cursed big, in italics. Harder than you'd ever seen. Again, like every time has to be more than the last. He has to get taller somehow magically from the last book, broader from the last book. Every muscle is harder than in the last book. His even gets harder than it did in the last book. Like he's bigger, better, stronger, faster, has more testosterone than ever before, more alpha male. Like, when does it end? I would like to know. She also lists all his titles. His eyes rolled back into his head, and Kingfisher of the Aegean Gate, Slayer of the Last Dragon, and Lord of Kalish obeyed me. That's a little over the top. He chides her as a cruel, cruel female because she's now edging him, even though she acted like she'd never conceived of the idea of edging when she was on the receiving end of it. And then she says she didn't draw on him, didn't fucking move. What does it mean to draw on him? Am I stupid? What does that mean? Not to sound like Saris, but I promise I am not a virgin. I don't know what that means. Feel free to let me know in the comment. Feel free to explain. Actually, don't. Just don't. Never mind. You know what? I will give Callie Hart this. I do appreciate that the dynamic becomes Saris calling the shots, and I do appreciate this paragraph. There was something very empowering about a male like Kingfisher relinquishing control and offering free rein over his body. It was an act of trust, submission even, and a lethal creature baring his neck to you was a heady thing indeed. Calling him a lethal creature, a bit much for me. But I do appreciate the acknowledgement that submission is an act of trust and that it can go both ways. And he's allowed to be like the most alpha male-iest, testosterone-driven, hardest, broadest, tallest female on the planet and still submit to his mate, and that can be hot and a sign of trust. I appreciate that. Thank you. I was hardly shy in bed as a rule, but with Fisher, my confidence felt electric. She was hardly shy in bed as a rule, except for when she was totally shocked and abashed and like embarrassed and giggly when he wanted to go down on her. Okay, that's like technically an earlier base than what you're doing now. But sure. So anyway, that's our first sex scene of the book. Very dramatic. They eventually both come. They're very pleased with themselves. And then we progress to not do anything, basically, for the rest of this section. I'm going to speed through it a little bit because, to be honest, very little happens in the next few chapters, and I found them quite boring. So basically, they separate. Kingfisher goes off to think about the sex for a while. And to be called a soy boy, basically, by Renfis because he bypasses the bacon and goes straight for pastries. What kind of grown male are you anyway? How dare you not eat the meat? Like, okay. Anyways, he just throws in a little bit of classism against sheep herders for some reason at this point. Don't breathe another word, I growled. I'm not going to gossip about my romantic life with you like some sort of sheep herder. He frowned. Are sheep herders gossip mongers? Yes. You'd be surprised by the scandalous things bored sheep herders are privy to, especially the ones in the foothills of the shallow mountains. Like, I'm sorry, what did sheep herders ever do to you? Leave them alone. Maybe they want to chat about their lives. Good Lord. We also go back to Saris, who is visiting Everlane, Kingfisher's half-sister, who is in a coma, but no one is concerned about her. She hasn't come up until this point, I don't think, at all. Now we're 9 chapters into the book, but Saris is visiting her. I don't know that Kingfisher has visited her once, but that's fine. Both of them say they care about their siblings and then proceed to very much not act like they care about their siblings. But anyway, she visits Everlane, and Everlane wakes up somehow, but it's not Everlane. It's someone else, somehow using her body, who is calling herself Adina and telling Saris that she has to go to the library to find a book. And Saris very cleverly says, well, yeah, obviously there are books in the library. Like, that's the funniest joke that's ever been told. She's talking to this Adina through Everlane and saying that she doesn't know if Everlane will ever come back. She's been waiting to talk to Saris for so long. And then she says, thank you. Make sure he knows how much I loved him, Saris. At the end, make sure he knows that I'd do it all again. What did that mean? As if it's not very obvious at this point who Adina is. And then Adina is disappearing. She's falling back into Everlane. She's not responding. And Ceres is yelling, Adina, 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 help me. And of course, Kingfisher shows up and is like, Osha, why were you calling my mother's name? As this dramatic end to the chapter, as if we didn't know for that whole time that obviously this is his mother somehow. Like, that's not a reveal. You made it very obvious. We talk about how the rot is expanding and we definitely have to fix it, and we're going to split up to fix it. So Carrion and Kingfisher are going to go back to Zilvarin to save her brother, because finally Ceres has decided she cares about her brother. Now that we're on chapter 10, she's remembered he exists. So they're going to go get him and also get a bunch of silver because they need it to fight against not the vampires that Ceres now controls, but the vampires who are coming from Zilvarin, who are human, who she can't control, apparently. And so they're going to go do that. They're teaming up because Carrion's the only one who knows what Hayden looks like other than Ceres, and she's not going to go. Ceres is going to go back to her castle, try to find the forge, and also to train to use her god sword, because she really hasn't been training and doesn't really know how to use it, and probably should learn. So she's going to do that. We spend a lot of time recapping things that happened in the first book, including her meeting the gods and what the gods told her, because apparently they never told anyone else, so now they're telling them basically beat for beat on the page in case we forgot. I guess we get to learn it all over again. I remembered this already, even though I read this book a year ago, so it was a little tedious, gonna be honest. They say goodbye. It's very emotional, but lasts for 2 sentences. Then Ceres and Tal have this conversation where Tal's like, I think we probably should break it off publicly. I don't really like being bound to you, to be totally honest. I don't like feeling your emotions. I don't like that you feel mine. I think it would be better for us if we just separated. We might have to make it a little dramatic for them to buy it, but let's do that. And she's like, sure, great. Actually, I would love that. Also, I want you to be my regent because I don't really want to be queen anyway, and you know what you're doing, and I feel like maybe you should just actually be the leader and I'll just pretend to be queen, basically, because I really don't care. And in that conversation at one point, she lets out the breath she'd been holding, because of course she did. We definitely needed that in there. Totally. That goes on for a whole chapter for no reason, for them to have that one conversation. Completely unnecessary. Very boring. Then we are going to the Silver City with Kingfisher and Carrion. It's a bit of a chase. There's a lot of Kingfisher thinking about how Carrion is a jackass and very useless, is stupid for naming his sword Simon, is slow and annoying. They go on a side quest to a bar where Carrion receives all his friends like he's the Pope or something. They're waiting for this guy to show up who they need to get into this vault where Carrion has all the stolen goods with all the silver they need so that they can make weapons. And the guy finally shows up, but then he runs. But not when he sees Carrion. He runs when he sees Fisher, and that's fishy. So, cliffhanger. How does he know Fisher? I guess we'll find out in the next chapter, and I paused there, so I don't know what happens next, but you'll find out very soon, because I'm going to go read the next 25%, and I'll be back when I get to the halfway point, and I'll let you know if we get an answer for that at all. Ceres has been crowned. Ceres and Kingfisher finally had sex since she became a vampire. Kingfisher and Carrion are going to get her brother and some silver. She's training with a sword and made a deal with Tal. That's it. We are now, in my ebook version, 256 pages in, which is like a whole book in another genre. Maybe not a whole romantasy book, but a whole book in another genre. We would be done by now. And that's all that's happened. So very slow progress. The writing is rough. I'm having a bit of a hard time. I am occasionally finding it entertaining just because it is so dramatic and over the top and silly, even though, again, they're acting like that one vampire lord lady is so dramatic and hysterical, even though she's probably the most chill of any of these people. But fine. I'm just kind of waiting for the story to start. It feels like we're recapping the first book a lot with some murder and sex thrown in occasionally. What fun, truly. It's very late. It's 2 a.m. I just finished chapter 25, which is the halfway point. There are many things to complain about in terms of the writing style and the repetition and the drama and the italics and the single word sentences all on their own line with a period each time and silly similes. But I already kind of covered those things, so I probably won't regale you with all of that again. I will give a bit of a recap of the plot, although to be honest, I think even less happened in this section than the first quarter. So there's that. Basically, all the things that happened are that Saris went to the library to try to find what Kingfisher's mom told her to find, the specific book. And in the library, she meets and hangs out with the older Lady Lord vampire who has a cat friend named Guru, who so far is maybe the best part of this book, Guru the cat. Although Saris proves once again why she's the worst by waxing poetic about how much she does not trust cats. And the best way to get me to dislike a character is to have them talk about how much they dislike a cat, because cats are the best and the sweetest. And Saris, honestly, there is that common kind of joke, but kind of not. There's a Venn diagram of people who don't like cats and misogynists, and it's not quite a circle, but it's close. As in, if you hate cats at home, that doesn't automatically make you a misogynist, but again, those circles overlap quite a bit. And Saris is already on thin ice with me in terms of misogyny. She has very few relationships with women at all in general. I think this series struggles to limp past the finish line of the Bechdel test once so far in hundreds of pages, like 500 pages or something is where we're at now. So that's reassuring. She also talks to the elderly Lady Lord about books and cats in the library. So, okay, fine. It passes the Bechdel test again, but barely. She has a lot of not like other girls internalized and externalized misogyny vibes, and her hating cats is just another nail in the coffin for me with Saris. She could do better. She's 25. She's old enough to know better that being like other girls is not a thing I'm afraid of. Anyway, so regardless, she goes to the library, she's looking for this book, meets this cat Guru, and she gets attacked by a random man who is unidentified. And if you guessed that random unidentified man is in fact the man that has been being name dropped since the beginning of the book, who is the friend of Kingfisher and Renfus and so on, who was turned into a vampire, who they're hoping to bring back into the fold, who I don't remember ever being mentioned in book 1, but it's possible that he was and I just forgot. Foley, then you're right. It is him. Shocking, I know, that the unidentified man who attacked Saris in this chapter would be the man who has been talked about since the beginning of the book, but hasn't shown up yet. So she's attacked, and in reacting attacked suddenly, she just flares out with magic and kind of bursts a hole in the wall of the library and destroys a bunch of the library, which that's fun. Love that. Then we go back to Kingfisher and Carrion. They are fighting a horde of scorpions and also a giant demon that is made up of all the mini scorpions, but is also a giant scorpion. He is one and the many. The random side quest of trying to survive the scorpion demon felt totally unnecessary. Like, that was a short story. That could have been released as, here's an extra story, the adventures of Kingfisher and Carrion. It did not have to be in this book. It was a little pocket story that related to literally nothing else. There was no development for the characters. The very tiny bit that we learned about Carrion and Kingfisher in the process, we could have learned very easily in any of the other scenes that they have spent together so far. It was a waste of time. It was obvious they were going to defeat the scorpion demon. This book is so long already. They get tricked into a dream seeing dead people. And simultaneously, Saris and Foley are getting to know each other. And he says, wow, you look like you haven't slept in weeks. And she's really offended because she has perfect porcelain skin because she's a vampire queen. How dare you? She has no bags under her eyes. She thought she was actually looking really great. Thanks so much. But she agrees that maybe she should rest at some point, and she tries to sleep, and when she falls asleep, she appears in Kingfisher's dream, because of course she did. And I give you 3 guesses what they do when they find out they're in each other's dream. Did you even need 3? I bet you got it in 1. Did you guess that they had sex? You are correct. They did have sex. In that scene, lots of stuff happens. Maybe I'll read a few quotes if I can summon the energy, but the thing that really stood out to me is that he took off her shirt and then 3 pages later, he ripped her shirt off again. There's no indication that she was wearing multiple shirts, so to me, that's just a continuity error. Also, I forgot to mention back in chapter 14, there is a quick line that Cerys is currently not with Lorith because Lorith is with Carrion in the training hall, attempting to whip him into shape. And I just question how Carrion is with Lorith currently if he is also simultaneously in Zilvarin with Kingfisher, about to run into and do a whole side quest trying to kill the scorpion demon. You know, can he be in two places at once? Are there clones now? We have fae, we have vampires, we have zombies, and we have clones. The more the merrier at this point, you know. Everything but the kitchen sink is what I always say. We get lots of Cerys and Foley bickering. Foley just happens to have exactly the skill set and knowledge that they need to solve all their problems. So that's convenient. And he is willing to help. So that's nice. Except Cerys is not willing to accept help. At one point in one of these chapters, I will not try to find it, she talks about how she had to really work hard to put on this arrogant, queenly tone because it doesn't come naturally to her. And then she's talking with Foley and she is so arrogant, like struggling so much to accept that she actually knows nothing about this magic at all and could use some help and wants to act like she knows everything already. Anyway, that's Cerys in a nutshell. She has no self-awareness whatsoever. The arrogance didn't come naturally. It was like new muscle, stubbornly refusing to bear weight, but I wouldn't be chided by the likes of him. And then later she proceeds to be very arrogant, including about her looks. Oh yeah, this is the line. You look like you haven't rested in weeks. Wow, thanks. The vampire sure had a way with words. My skin was porcelain these days, pale and flawless. There were no bags under my eyes. My eyes were bright. Personally, I thought I looked pretty good for someone who had just been through hell and back, but according to Foley, I looked like shit. I think my favorite thing about this whole section, we didn't have to do the scorpion demon battle for this to happen because they spend other time together. They could have just interacted with the guards and gotten hurt and then been hiding out and had these interactions, but I did like that Kingfisher finally started to appreciate Carrion's sense of humor because Carrion is the best part of these books, other than Guru the cat, who just showed up, was on the page for like one chapter. And I appreciated that Kingfisher finally just asked him if he's in love with Cerys, because clearly Kingfisher is jealous as all get out, and he will not stop being a weirdly violent and aggressive, jealous boyfriend, although he's not a boyfriend, he's a mate. And he finally just asked Carrion, are you in love with Cerys? And Carrion finally answered the question, and I actually found it really touching and emotional, and I appreciated the deepening of Carrion's character development to hear from him that he loves Cerys but is not in love with her, and that she helps him feel alive and connected to reality and to feeling and to passion after living for over 1,000 years pretending to be mortal and never really being able to have human connection, and once in his life allowing himself to fall in love with a human and losing them, and the grief being something that has just weighed on him for over 1,000 years, and realizing that grief for an almost immortal being is a very different thing than grief for humans whose lives are a flash in the pan in comparison to a fae, for example. I could have loved her, truly, Carrion said softly, but this place broke me centuries before Cerys was born. I made the mistake of letting myself fall for a human once, and believe me when I say that once was enough. A long time ago, someone told me that the pain of loss was a temporary thing, that it would soften as the years went by, until the ache became an old friend that felt comfortable to be around. But the person who told me that was human. I didn't have much to go on when it came to my kind, but it always seemed to me that the fae must experience grief differently from humans. Humans live for such a short time. It makes sense that their pain visited them and left soon enough after. It would be cruel, would swallow up their entire lives otherwise. But for me, every year that I live, it seems the magnitude of my loss eclipses the last. So yes, I love Cerys Fane, because she's electric and fierce and loyal, and being around her brings the world back into focus. But I'm not in love with her, Fisher. I tried, but my heart was just too full of sorrow to make room for her. And as much as I don't think Cerys deserves this kind of devotion, to be totally honest, because she's such a boring, flat character, I love Carrion. I think he's the most fully fleshed out, most real feeling character in these books so far. And this was so endearing and lovely and relatable. As someone going through grief, I found it quite emotional, and I loved that he had that moment and that Fisher respected him in that moment and finally saw him as a three-dimensional person and not just a caricature or, the fool, the court jester or something. He could finally see that Carrion had been through shit and had feelings, and also finally could let go of this constant fear that Carrion was about to swoop in and steal Cerys away from him. So I appreciated that interaction. It happened in the wake of the scorpion fight, but again, could have been set up in so many ways without that unnecessarily long chapter. And that was probably the most emotional, vulnerable, heartfelt moment of the book so far, 352 pages in, and the most emotional, vulnerable, honest, real feeling moment in the book is not between our love interests. It's between the comedic relief bisexual best friend and the male love interest. And I'm starting to feel like this would be a more interesting story if Carrion was the love interest for either of them. To be honest, I don't really like Fisher or Saris. I find them equally boring. They both have very little going on, but Carrion makes both of them more interesting when he's there. So I feel like Carrion should be involved somehow. Maybe it should just be a little poly triangle of love. Seems unlikely because, again, Kingfisher is aggressively heterosexual, but maybe he could have his bi-awakening and we could all be happier for it because Carrion could actually bring some human emotion or fae emotion, and some vulnerability and some romance and emotional honesty to this union. Because the one thing that really gets to me, and this is the next chapter where Saris falls asleep and wakes up in Kingfisher's dream and they have sex, is that there is nothing to their relationship except sex. They are very attracted to each other, which is great. They have sex that they both enjoy immensely, happy for them. They like to talk about logistics and go into battle together. Cool. There is nothing else there. They don't have common interests. They don't laugh together. The only time I feel that they have any levity together has to do with them flirting with each other and making the other one kind of uncomfortable or embarrassed by flirting. Most of their interactions are very awkward dirty talk or very awkward, you are my soulmate and I will go to the ends of the earth for you sort of dialogue that feels so put on and so performative and therefore so empty to me. I do not understand this abiding eternal love that they apparently have for each other. I do not understand Kingfisher talking about living for over 1,000 years and never feeling a connection like this. And now he understands what love should be like. It's like he's opened his eyes for the first time and seen the sun because now he knows Saris and this is what life should be like. And I'm just thinking, why? Where? Not only do I find Saris and Fisher incredibly boring as individuals, but they're also incredibly boring together. The whole is not greater than the sum of its parts. In this case, I just feel like there is nothing there. And that's wild for a romantasy where, yes, there is a plot and there are other things happening, but the main draw is supposed to be the romance between the characters. You're supposed to be rooting for them and giggling and kicking your feet and enjoying the sex scenes, but also enjoying presumably some level of romance and banter and I don't know, anything. They just have no spark at all. And because the sex scenes are not to my taste personally, and again, all the dirty talk, all the romance talk is just the same stuff regurgitated again and again. 1 second, there's a cat at the door. Oh, that's my spot, actually. Can you sit on my lap? Because I need to sit here. Okay. My goodness. I was actually here first, It's chaos in here right now. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, okay. I just feel like they don't really have chemistry. I guess they have sexual chemistry if it works for them. I find it very stilted and kind of performative and put on, but maybe someone else who's more into their dynamic would find it less so. I just feel like they have no chemistry in any other way. I just want to see that they get along, that they enjoy each other's company. I get that they don't have TV in their realm, but can they sit next to each other and both read a book and be comfortable and happy hanging out? Do they both like the same music? Do they both like the same art? Do they like the same activities? I don't know. I said earlier that I didn't think that Saris would have participated in group sports to know how to fumble things back home, but maybe they do sports. I mean, I realize that they have battles and things to do and maybe don't have a lot of free time for activities, but I just feel like there's nothing there. What are their mutual interests? Honey, you're being so loud. Where is the joking about something that has nothing to do with their sex life? And it's okay if the foundation of a relationship is sex. It's just that they keep talking about how they're so fated, they're soulmates, they're going to spend eternity together. And I just keep thinking, why? I'm glad that the sex is good for you, but there has to be more to it for a lifetime, right? I'm just not feeling it. I don't get the dynamic and I don't buy it. I don't buy that they're actually in love. I'm sorry. I don't. My authority on this matter is that I am celebrating my 10-year wedding anniversary this year, and I feel like I have some idea. I'm not an authority on all relationships, but I have managed to have a happy romantic relationship with one person for 12 years, if you include our time before getting married. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more to our relationship. There's a lot more depth. And yes, obviously we've been together way longer now, but even, before we got engaged, we had way more to build a relationship on. We had way more in common. We had built or started to build a friendship as well as a romantic relationship. And I just don't see that with them at all. I also, there's this long few page, maybe 2-page section where Sarah is just thinking about how much she loves Kingfisher and how every little thing he does makes her love him more. The simple act of him crossing the room to stand by the fire had me holding my breath. How could you fall in love with someone because of something so simple as crossing a room? And I'm like, first of all, you're not falling in love with him because of that. You're already in love with him. So you didn't. I highly doubt anyone has fallen in love with someone just by watching them cross a room. Not real love anyway. If you're in love with someone, obviously you love the little things they do. You get to know their little quirks and their habits and the way they do things and the way they look doing various mundane things, and those things increase your love. Totally. They don't make you fall in love with someone from scratch, but they do reinforce and strengthen your love. I just don't know why and how they're in love. I don't believe that they're in love. And then it very quickly transitions from thinking about the things he does, like crossing a room and the little furrow between his brows that make her love him more, to being horny because they're horny 24/7. Holy shit, I was so fucked. Every single thing this male did made me want him, made me want to scream, made me want to M-. Haven't you learned your lesson yet, Osha? Fisher rose from the fireplace and slowly paced across the threadbare rug toward me. He stood before me, his powerful thighs at my eye level. I looked up at him, trying not to get caught up in the fact that I had to bypass the wall of muscle that made up his stomach and his chest before I could reach his eyes. It was a miracle that I found them at all. Okay, again, it just feels like their relationship is about finding each other hot, which fine, but don't act like it's something more than it is then. Right? The most unique, most beautiful creature in the entire realm, on her knees in front of me, looking up at me like she's feeling feral and might just like to fuck me. Yes, he said. I'd say I'm feeling pretty pleased with myself. My nerve endings buzzed with electricity. This fucking male, separated by periods because I really need the emphasis. She goes on to think, was this what life was going to be like now? Falling more and more in love with him? Just wanting him and needing him more than anything else I had ever needed? I hoped with every fiber of my being that it would be, because this felt ellipses woo. Really? Woo? Woo. I didn't even know how to describe what it felt like to have this male looking down at me like he was feeling everything I was feeling. Callie, darling, you are an author. Your entire job is to describe what it feels like. Please stop copying out by saying, I don't know how to describe what it feels like. Just describe it. Use the words at your disposal. Please, for the love of gods. Like he was feeling feral and wanted me to. I mean, he just said that about okay. And this just made me laugh because I'm like, that sounds like such a boring life where all that you have going on is that you are wanting him and needing him all the time, and then having sex, and then building up to wanting and needing him again. And you're apparently falling more and more in love with him, but you're falling in love with the fact that he has rock hard abs and a really broad chest. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. If you have a successful long-term relationship based solely on your sexual chemistry with someone and you're happy with that, more power to you. I just feel like that sounds boring. I really value the fact that my husband is my best friend and that I just find him delightful to hang out with, that he's my favorite person and funny and caring and smart and interesting. And we have lots of things in common and like to talk about all kinds of things. That's great. That makes every day more fun. And yes, I find him super sexy. That's great too. But that's not everything. I feel like that would get boring so fast. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Feel free to let me know. I don't enjoy that as they're leading up to having sex, she talks about the fact that he can still make her blush like a little girl. I thought we were going to get away with not doing any non-consensual choking in this book like we did in book 1. But no, all I saw was a blur of shadow and light as Fisher sped forward and took me by the throat again. Again, I don't remember him having her by the throat before. Maybe I blocked it out. His fingers pressed into the side of my neck ever so slightly as he rubbed his thumb back and forth over my jawline. Not to go into the whole diatribe again from book 1, but you have to have conversations about this stuff. You have to practice safety when it comes to choking. Be safe out there. I definitely have a cat hair directly in my retina at this point, and it hurts like hell. So if I'm blinking a million miles a minute, it's the cat's fault. In her own head, she thinks, fuck, he had me breathless and back to front for him, and he knew it. What does that mean? He had me breathless and back to front for him? Is that a thing? Is that a reference? I feel like I've never heard that before in my life. Then on the next page, we get the infamous moment where he pulled my shirt over my head. In my version, this is page 367. And then 371, his eyes shifting frantically as he ripped down the front of my shirt, exposing my right breast, then the left. Didn't you? Okay, you took the shirt off already. How many shirts are there? You keep talking about it like it's a shirt. I have questions. If you think a broken hand is going to stop me from fucking you properly, Osha, then please, let me disabuse you of that notion. I could spend the rest of eternity right here and die happy, he rumbled. I could fuck you and feast on you until the ages turned and the suns all dried and burned out in the skies, and I still wouldn't have had enough of you. I just want him to stop talking. I feel like these scenes would be significantly better if they just contained zero dialogue whatsoever. It just feels so performative and put on. It does not feel realistic. It feels very dramatic, and I find it off-putting. If someone spoke to me like this in the bedroom, I would be leaving said bedroom. Sorry. Thank the gods, I chanted in my head. Thank the fucking gods. Don't thank them, came Fisher's low resonant reply. Thank me. I'm the one who's about to make you scream. Come on. No other male will have ever loved another female the way I love you. Where? Based on what? I do not feel the love at all. Again, closing around the throat. At least in this case, it says his grip wasn't tight. It was a suggestion of something that could happen, that might happen if I wanted it to. They talk a lot in the bedroom, but they do not often agree upon acts that are going to be committed and get explicit consent. And that's too bad, because they're already talking constantly. Nonstop, will not shut up. I threw back my head and cracked my skull against the wall. It didn't matter. Ow? It didn't matter? You didn't pause for even a second? You cracked your skull? Okay, that sounds serious, but sure, continue. I need you. I want you. I need you. I want you. All in italics, all on their own line, obviously. Kill me, sit on my face, and ride my tongue until I fucking die. They're so dramatic all the time. You don't need to die. You can just have fun and then do it again tomorrow. The dramatics are so extreme for no reason. I don't know. Not only is there's not that much variety between the scenes really in what happens, but it has to be way better for some reason, even though it's basically the same. I think she even says in this section that he is harder than he's ever been before again. Also, at this point, he calls her Nisarhin. Nissarin? Who's Nissarin? Don't know. They don't acknowledge it. I don't remember ever seeing this name before. Is it going to come up again? Is that a nickname? Is that her true name or something? Did he know that too, but not tell her? I don't know. Came out of nowhere. Anyway, that's enough of that. They have sex. It's great. And all, as it always is for them. Also, earlier, Saris let out the breath she was holding. Now Kingfisher let out the breath he'd been holding, because we needed a twofer. They need to be aligned in all ways because they're soulmates. They're mates, Saris wakes up and continues to argue with Foley and plans to go to the forge to do some practice work with the Quicksilver. Back to Kingfisher and Carrion. Carrion Swift was slowly wearing me down from Kingfisher, so things are getting good. And I did appreciate Carrion telling Kingfisher, I wasn't lying. I prefer my women and my men a whole lot prettier than you. You go, Carrion. They find her brother, and he thinks that Kingfisher killed her because of propaganda, and there's a big continuity error / mistake that wasn't edited out because this book was edited 0%. Saris isn't in Evalia anymore, Hayden. She accidentally opened a Fae portal, and Fisher here came through in Zilvarin. What? My question here, this whole scene, is Hayden believing the propaganda that the Queen has put out that Kingfisher killed Saris, but the implication is that that happened in Zilvarin. But doesn't Hayden know at this point that she's in Evalia because Carrion came back to set him up with an apartment and told him that Saris was okay, right? Did that not happen in the first book? I just feel why would he believe that story unless the Queen said that she was killed in the other realm? Do the average people know about the other realms now? I don't know. I just feel it's all kind of a mess. Nothing is really explained. We're spending so much time on unnecessary things. And then not really explaining the things that probably should be explained that we need to follow the story. Also, Kingfisher has zero patience for Hayden, and it just feels very off-putting. Again, this is the love of your life, your soulmate, you're obsessed with her, and you have zero patience or empathy for her brother at all, because you're starting to sound like a petulant, spoiled little shit who hasn't had to deal with hardship a day in his fucking life. And then he's holding him by the throat, because again, lots of choking, whether it's sexual or not. And Hayden actually passes out. I also loved Carrion pointing out the ways that Kingfisher treats him as a two-dimensional caricature of a person. It's very simple, Fisher. If you treat me like I'm the court jester, I'll be the court jester. If I'm the laughingstock or the drunk or the idiot, then you're not thinking about who I really am, are you? I survived here for over 1,000 years. Do you really think I'd have been able to do that if I couldn't pull myself out of a fucking hole? If at any point you underestimate me, he smirked, arching a dark copper eyebrow, then I'd say that was your mistake rather than mine. Wouldn't you? I would agree. I guess because they made it a whole thing in the first book about Ceres being involuntarily sterilized and Kingfisher being really upset about it. And I felt in the first book that it was maybe a little poorly handled. It felt like his reaction, I don't know. It was just a little iffy for me. I found it was a bit odd the way that they discussed it, to be totally honest. And in this book, he's still really mad about it. And he murders like 50 people. Which, I mean, they're the guards who are working for the queen and they've probably done bad things, but also like, I don't know. Feels a little excessive, but what you gonna do? And then we're back to Ceres, and she's in the forge. She's working with the Quicksilver. She gives up a memory of her and her brother. I wonder if that will be relevant to convince the Quicksilver to bond. And then the creature lord vampire shows up and is talking to her, and she once again, this is the second time in this book, and she did it a few times in the first book, Ceres really likes to identify everyone's gender, and she gets caught up when she can't immediately identify what gender someone is. So then she's talking with this ancient creepy creature who apparently is very powerful and had struck a bargain with Malcolm, the former king, talking about maybe striking a bargain with her next, and gives some advice about working with a Quicksilver, and she doesn't know whether she trusts this person or not because they are a creepy creature with multiple rows of very sharp teeth. And then Carrion and Fisher and Hayden are continuing their journey, meet up with Elroy, the man who trained Ceres in the art of the forge, and it turns out that he knew all along who Carrion was, but never said anything, and also has access to a giant pool of Quicksilver that he never told anyone about and no one knew about or could sense somehow. So that's a big reveal. And that's the end of the first half. That's all that happens. It seems like more because I read so many quotes, but it's very little actually at the end of the day. Ceres fought with Foley, blew a hole in the side of the library, argued with Foley, and went to the forge. That's it. And then for Kingfisher and Carrion, they got to Zilvarin, they killed the scorpion demon thing, they picked up Hayden, and they ran into Elroy, and that's it. And that was the whole second 25%, the whole next 250 pages of this book. Oh yeah, and Ceres and Kingfisher fucked in their dreams. So that's great. I'm gonna need something to happen. Like either this book is more about plot, in which case more plot should be happening, or it's more about the relationship and the sex, in which case 2 sex scenes is very little for this amount of time. I'm not even into the sex scenes, but at least more sex scenes would make this book make sense to me as to why it exists. Or way more relationship development. Why do I feel zero love or chemistry and very few interactions in general between our 2 love interests in this book at all? There's just so little going on here. I feel like I'm about to lose my marbles. I don't know what's happening. People get mad when I ask why a book exists, but what is the point of this? Nothing's happening. What are we getting out of this? I don't know. Okay, I need to go to sleep. I need to regenerate my brain cells, maybe, possibly in the next few hours of shut-eye, and then I will come back tomorrow, try to finish this so I can be done. So see you tomorrow. I finished Brimstone. I was gonna do a 75% mark check-in, but honestly, when I got to that point earlier today, I didn't want to. I had nothing to say. It was all the same stuff that I've been saying already, and I just thought, you know what? I'll finish it. I'll just finish the book, and then we'll talk about it. So that's what we're doing. Let me run through what happened. Slightly more happened than the first half, but honestly, still, there is no reason why this book had to be so goddamn long. Okay, so basically, we start the second half with Carrion and Kingfisher getting back with Hayden, Ceres's little brother, who has passed out because of traveling through the Quicksilver, so they don't get to have their reunion yet. And also Ceres fights a guy who is aligned with a bad guy from the first book who married Kingfisher's mom after Kingfisher's dad died, Belican. His right-hand man shows up and Ceres has to fight him, and then he scurries away. So that happens. Also, Ceres and Kingfisher are excited to see each other again, obviously, and are all lovey-dovey and also weirdly sexual all the time. Then Ceres goes to confront Zovena, who is the Lord of Missives, meaning she handles the post. She's the head of the post office for the vampires. And she has been receiving letters from friends and family of Foley, this guy who was built up so much through the whole first half of the book, who never received his letters and thought that all his friends and family had abandoned him. Turns out that she got the letters, she just didn't give them to him because he was shunned from their society. So why should she? But Ceres is really pissed, and she's like, obviously you still have those letters, so you better give them back to him by the end of today. Make it happen. And it's just super imperious and arrogant and hostile all the time. And she really hates Zovena for no particular reason, as far as I can tell. Zovena clearly doesn't like her, but also none of the vampires seem to like her, so I don't get the specific hostility towards her in particular, except the fact that she's the only young looking vampire lord lady to compete with her. I don't know, just putting that out there. Far be it from me to break up the beginnings of a cat fight from Carrion about Ceres and Zovena. Again, there's so many amazing representations of female relationships in this book. Definitely not pretty much entirely rivalries, jealousy, misogyny, posturing, shitty competitive energy. I wasn't enjoying any of this, but it had to be done. It was as I told Carrion just now. Zovena needed to know that no matter how badly she wished otherwise, I was her better, and I was not to be fucked with. Ceres is so insufferable in this book. The power of being queen of the vampires went to her head so goddamn fast. It's painful to read. I was about to dismiss her from my presence like a scolded child when the door to Tal's chamber swung open and my maker appeared in the open doorway. He was naked and spattered with blood, and his cock jutted outrageously, in italics, hard from between his thighs. Also, for some reason, we have to witness Ceres going to speak to Tal, being drawn to him, and it turns out he's literally in the middle of an orgy. Was that necessary whatsoever? No, it was not. Carrion is there, so of course he makes some jokes, implies that he would like to be invited in, and then when Tal's like, I mean, you could come in, he gets nervous about pleasuring so many women at once and backs out. Seems a little, honestly, out of character for Carrion because I feel like he's having his own little orgies left, right, and center since book one, but fine, sure. 7 naked fey females sprawled out on an unbelievably big bed in the room beyond. They were in various stages of undress. I'd spent enough time at Calla's to be very accustomed to seeing women wandering around in their bare skin. This was different. Also, I guess just for the titillation of girl-on-girl action, we get one of the females in the center of the bed starting to kiss the female next to her and touching herself, and Carrion dragged his bottom lip through his teeth. Who is this for? Again, I'm pretty sure 99% of the people reading this book, I'm pretty sure the target audience of this book is straight women. So who is this for? Because as a bisexual woman, it feels a little bit like fetishizing sapphic sexuality. Stop it. Bonk on the nose. Directly to horny jail. There are no sapphic characters in the story. There is no genuine sapphic representation. We just get 2 women making out and touching themselves to appeal to the male gaze, literally to try to appeal to Tal to get him to come back to bed. And we watch through Carrion's eyes. Also, there are so many times, I was just trying to find a quote to read to you. There are so many times in this book that there are no opening quotation marks, so you don't actually know that dialogue has started, but then at the end of the dialogue, there are closing quotation marks, so then you realize that that was dialogue the whole time. It's so confusing, especially because we have Ceres and Kingfisher talking to each other in their brains, telepathically, and in those cases, we don't have quotation marks because they're not saying it aloud. So then I think that they're talking to each other in moments where they're not both there, and I get so confused until I realize that it's just a total lack of editing or care or attention whatsoever to the grammar ever, including all the many other grammar mistakes and spelling mistakes as well. Anyway, Kingfisher and Foley have a reunion, and Foley is shocked that Kingfisher has fallen in love. He just can't compute. And there's a lot of like backslapping, everything other than literally saying, "Oh my God, you're so whipped, dude." But like that's the implication. None of his friends can believe that he is so in love and that he actually has a mate. "Who are you? You were such a player. I can't believe you're settling down. It's so embarrassing." A ball is happening for some reason. Tal says there has to be a ball. Also, he's still naked. The court tailor is there. I think she's clothed. So she has to be measured for a special dress to wear to the ball. She tells the seamstress to just eyeball it, and the seamstress is super offended because her whole livelihood and reputation relies on this outfit looking great, looking regal, and fitting like a glove, and she truly cannot do that by estimating Saris's measurements, and Saris cannot believe that she has to stand still for like 3 minutes to get measured. I've been measured for so many costumes in my life, from being a dance competition kid to working in musical theater. It takes so little time to get measured. Like, the fact that she was making such a big stink about it, by the time she was done complaining, the court tailor would have been done. Always complaining, always hostile to everyone that she meets. Can you tell that Saris is getting on my nerves? She's getting on my nerves. I'm sorry, what? Ball? And ball is the one that's italicized? I feel like the italics are annoying in general, because it's annoying when an author tries to force me to read things a very particular way. It feels like they're controlling my experience too much. But the thing that annoys me even more is that the italics are often on a word that doesn't make sense to emphasize in the sentence. If someone were to say, "I'm sorry, what ball?" I would think they would say, "I'm sorry, what ball?" Like, what ball are you talking about? It's not the fact that it's a ball, it's which ball. No one told me about a ball. We've established that it's a ball already. Saying, "I'm sorry, what ball?" is weird. "I can't attend a ball right now, Tal. I don't have time." Again, italicized. This is just one in a very long line of scenes where Saris doesn't know basic things that she should know, that someone would have told her at some point, or maybe she could have asked about, because the fact that she is clueless allows us to learn info dumping in dialogue, but it just makes Saris look stupid, because she doesn't know anything that's happening ever, and she has zero interest in finding out. She just waits for things to happen and for people to tell her in the moment. How is she still alive at this point? Also, we get this gem of a line, "And I did save your life, so I was fucked. Royally so, it would seem." I don't remember if I mentioned this or where exactly this happens, but Saris finds the special book that Kingfisher's mom, who is dead, who was possessing his sister, who's in a coma. If it feels convoluted to you, that's because it is. She finds the book. It happens that all the little paper birds in the library that I didn't bring up because it was very stupid, because they were clearly magic paper birds that Saris just could not wrap her head around how they could be flying around, because they're just paper, as if she doesn't live in a world full of vampires and fae and magic, and she herself doesn't have magic. Like, she can control metal. Are you fucking kidding me? Why are you surprised that someone could have magicked paper to be folded like a bird and fly around? Anyway, turns out all the little paper birds are actually pages from this magic book that Kingfisher's mom wrote ahead of time, because she was an oracle and knew that Kingfisher's mate was going to come and that it was Saris, and had drawn pictures of her, which is why Kingfisher recognized her in the first book and was already falling in love with her before Saris even knew anything about this, because he didn't communicate any of that with her. So all the paper birds coalesce into this book, and she's able to read some of Kingfisher's mom's predictions for the future and use it as a bit of a guide to handle all the things that are to come. And she wants to spend her time reading this book and using it to solve all of their many problems. The rot that is spreading, the superpower feeders that soak up their magic that are spreading, that don't seem to die from anything other than brimstone, which we'll get to in a second. The whole issue with the vampire court very begrudgingly following her edicts, but really wanting to take fae and put them into feeder farms. And also all the villains from book one, who we have barely mentioned or thought about in this book, but still are at large and a risk, one would assume. So she wants to study the book, but she can't because she has to go to a ball. And she's annoyed, and I'm annoyed too, as a reader. Why is this happening? It's such a waste of time. But at this point, like 500 pages in, we finally get introduced to Brimstone, the title of the book, because Ceres was talking to the cute little fire sprite from book 1, who's like Kingfisher's biggest fan and has been around since his childhood. And he goes outside and gets attacked by one of the feeder zombies, one of the superpower ones that soak up magic. And it turns out that the little fire sprite's Brimstone is one of the only things, if not the only thing, that can actually take them out. And so Ceres feels like finally we figured out how to defeat these super special feeder zombies that are infected with rot. Brimstone is the answer. So we just have to get a bunch of brimstone and we can succeed. Turns out brimstone is a very limited resource and it's keeping the fire sprites alive, and they only have enough to maintain their current population. And when they want to reproduce, when they want to make new little fire sprites, they have to each donate a tiny bit of their own life force, essentially, the brimstone, to have enough to create a new one. So they can't get enough brimstone from them unless they're willing to sacrifice all the fire sprites forever, which they don't want to do because the fire sprites are basically flaming lava hobbits, as far as I can tell. Their BFF fire sprite, Archer. So he survives, which we're happy about, but now we're back to square one because, well, a little bit past square one. Maybe we're at square two because we know that brimstone can kill them, but we have no access to brimstone other than massacring a whole population of cute little innocent creatures. Who wants to do that, right? So what are we gonna do? In the meantime, the ball continues to approach. Ceres continues to be very curmudgeon-y and hostile to everyone around her, including her brother, because they finally get reunited, and she is really pissed off that Hayden ever at all possibly believed any of the propaganda that Madra, the queen of Zilvarin, was spreading around, despite the fact that she never told him anything on purpose. She tried to protect him from the realities of their situation and what she had to do to get them food and provide shelter and safety after the death of their parents. And so he didn't know what she was doing to keep them in food. All he knew is that they always seemed to have more food than everyone else. And so when she disappeared suddenly after yelling at him and being very mean to him so he wouldn't follow her, and then all he heard for a very long time was propaganda with no one to counteract that or contradict it, he kind of wondered if maybe it was true, and she's so offended by this that she punches him full force in the face. What a great big sister. This is the first time they've seen each other in person and interacted since book 1. This whole time she's been talking about how he's her whole life and, you know, she gave up everything for him. She needs to get back to him right away, and this is so important. They're finally back together, and she is so mean to him. So lacking in any possible understanding or compassion at all. It's wild. It's wild. Oh yeah, Hart even writes the dialogue here in case we forgot how cruel she was to him when she was leaving. Again, she felt like she was doing it for a good reason because she felt like she had to make sure he wouldn't follow her. But he said, "I didn't realize I was such a burden." Well, you are, Hayden. Your entire fucking life, that's all you've been. Now leave me alone. Don't follow. Do not come looking for me. Go. And that's the last time they talked. So, you know, my head snapped up, something troubling suddenly clicking into place in my head. Elroy believes you're innocent. That's what Hayden had said. Elroy believes, and not we know. There wasn't a single mark on my brother. No cuts, no scrapes, no bruises. No one had thrown a punch at him lately. It occurred to me all at once that since I'd entered the room, he hadn't smiled at me. He hadn't fucking hugged me. Have you smiled at him or hugged him? Hadn't even seemed all that relieved to see me. Numb to my core, I took a wobbly step back from him, angling my head to one side in the vain hope that I might be able to get a better read on what it was that he was thinking. You think I did it, don't you? I whispered. Hayden clenched his jaw, looking away. You think I betrayed my friends. You think I actually worked for her. I didn't say that, he snapped. But you're not denying it. Gods and sinners, you actually think I worked for her, don't you? I don't know, he exploded. How the hell am I supposed to know? You never included me in any of the things you were working on. You never let me go anywhere with you. After reckoning, you were always off to one secret meeting or another. You'd never breathe a word of where you were going, would you? So that must mean I was in league with the Guardians then? Is that it? Maybe, he set his jaw, looking imperiously down his nose at me. I feel like you might be projecting a bit, my girl. If anyone's imperious at this point, I'm pretty sure it's you. You shut me out, kept me a million miles away from anything that was important. I don't know anything, Ceres, and that's because of you. And we always did seem to have more water and more food than everyone else. He didn't finish that thought. He couldn't with my fist slamming into his jaw. What a reunion. Girl, Sarah's has some anger issues. Hayden's head whipped around so fast that I worried for a moment I'd hit him too hard and broken something. Yeah, you also have Fae and vampire strength and keep talking through this whole book how you're stronger than almost everyone else because of your powers, and you just like fully punched your human brother in the face full force. You're lucky you didn't kill him. But then the rage his comment had elicited flared full force, and I hoped that I had broken something. I grabbed him by the front of his shirt and shoved him away. Fuck you, Hayden. More food? Again, there are no opening quotation marks for that, but there are closing quotation marks, so I guess talking out loud. I shoved him again. More water? Again, harder. Tears blurred my vision. I stabbed my finger in his face trying to speak, but only a sound of pure fury came out of me. I had to start again. If we had anything, if you didn't starve and die in the fucking sand, it was because I bled to keep you alive. I had to crawl on my stomach through sewer lines to reach the royal reserves. Once a week, I had to do that for you. Do you have any idea how disgusting that was? Like, no, he doesn't. He didn't know you did that because he never told him anything. Like, sucks to be you. It genuinely annoys me so much that so much of her personality was built up on this like goodwill of how great she was to her brother and how much she sacrificed for him, when it turns out that like she kept it all from him. She didn't want to burden him with it. But then the fact that he's not grateful for things that he didn't know she did because she never told him, she is now enraged enough to be like shoving him, shaking him around, punching him full force in the face when she has way more physical strength than he does. And he's still like, has just woken up from being passed out for a while from the discombobulation of traveling through the Quicksilver. Like, girl, chill. And did you ever hear me complain? I shoved him hard enough that he fell down this time, but just like always, Hayden Fane was given a soft fucking landing. The tufted chair caught him, saving him from the indignity of landing ass first on the rug. All that bitterness beneath it. Like, okay, so were you doing it out of the kindness of your heart? Like, I get that it's unfair that you had to basically parent him. You had to be that for him. It's unfair that that happened. But also, it's not Hayden's fault either that you were parentified and that you had to step in and take care of him. It's fair to have conversations about what you did if you want him to know. It's fair to want him to be grateful once he's aware, but you're telling him like you're already angry that he wasn't grateful before he ever knew any of this. And the like amount of rage and anger dripping off of her is deeply off-putting to me. I just wrote yikes in the margin. My mouth was all bile and copper. Heat rose up my throat from somewhere deep within the basement of my soul. Sure. I didn't tell you what I was doing every day because I had to go into tense situations in fucking horrible places and do unpleasant things. I spat. I didn't bring you with me to those places because I didn't want life to be hard for you like it was for me. But I see now that I've done you a disservice. You have this fucking illusion that life should be easy, that it owes you something, and that's on me. I thumped my own chest, clenching my jaw to the point of pain. I broke myself to look after you. I slipped into every other ward in Silvarin, and I robbed and I stole and I bartered and I traded just to make sure that you were comfortable and your belly was full. And then you have the audacity to turn around and accuse me of the most heinous thing I can possibly think of because I made life too fucking easy for you while everyone around us had to suffer. Saris, shut up, Hayden. Just shut the fuck up. So, yeah. That's their reunion after all this time. What a lovely brother-sister combo. They have such a strong bond, and Saris is very normal about the fact that none of that was Hayden's fault either. Love that. Wonder how they'll repair it. Spoiler alert, they repair it magically without actually working through any of that whatsoever. They're just better. And Hayden apologizes because it's all his fault for existing, I guess. I don't know. And then the ball has finally arrived, and Kingfisher and Saris are getting ready together. And can you guess what Kingfisher thinks about Saris in her dress? If you guess that he thinks that she's hot and that he's making his card, then you are correct. And if you guessed that they then proceed to get it on before the ball, you would be correct. I want to skip over this entire scene because the dirty talk is terrible. I feel like I should read some of it to you because it is so bad, but it's just so bad. Like, it hurt to read. Also, I love the aside that she's so beautiful that she never wears makeup, and she deigned to allow them to put a little bit of makeup on, but like you couldn't even really tell she's wearing makeup because she's so perfect already. Like, she's just so beautiful. It just never stops. You could barely tell she was wearing anything at all. Her skin was flawless, cheekbones high, eyes bright and clear, and the dress. Her waist was already narrow, but the corset top clinched her in tight. Again, she's curvier now, but don't forget she's still skinny. Very important. The décolletage was devastatingly low. Décolletage isn't the décolletage like your actual cleavage? Yeah, exactly. So the décolletage is your neck, chest, this area, and it's described as the décolletage was devastatingly low. So like her chest, neck, chest, collarbone, breast area was devastatingly low. I feel like you mean the neckline. Heart, okay. Again, if one editor read this, I feel like they would have caught this, but fine. Cupping her breasts so that her cleavage swelled every time she breathed. Again, that sentence doesn't make sense because that's not what décolletage means. I'll just read a few short excerpts from the scene and then we'll move on to the ball because at the ball something actually happens. I know, shocking. Can you believe it? A lesser male would sink his teeth into you right here and now and fuck you until you screamed. There's a lot of talking about fucking till screaming going on here. A lesser female would beg you to. Oh, my little Osha, she knew how to walk a dangerous line. I was going to do more than make her shake. I was going to make her fucking tremble. I was going to make her weak for me. I'm going to make you come now, and for the rest of the night, anyone who comes within 5 feet of you will scent the orgasm I'm about to give you. Yes, it was primal. Yes, it was petty. No, it was not very progressive of me to want to mark her in this way. I didn't fucking care. This female, who shone brighter than the suns of her home and mine combined, was my mate, and every single member of this court would be reminded of that fact. There are quite a few lines in this scene and also in the previous scenes that I think are just too explicit for me to read, even bleeping out a bunch of it. I would have to go back to Quicksilver and reread the sex scenes to compare, and I really would rather do almost anything else, including gouge my own eyes out. But I think that this book is more explicit and not in a fun way. So then they go to the ball, and the fun part about the ball is, one, that Ceres is getting totally drunk on her power and is becoming a tyrant, especially the way she treats Zovena. It is so glaringly, horrifically terrible the way she treats her. At this point, Zovena is literally just bringing up the point that Ceres does not want them to do any of the large-scale plans they have to ensure that they have a consistent stream of fae to feed on, which is fair from her perspective, but also they are vampires and they do need blood to survive. And it's also fair for them to be concerned about having a steady source of food for their continued survival. It's like not some weird extreme thing for them to be worried about. And Zovena, during this debate back and forth where Ceres is talking about how there will be no livestock breeding farms, there will be no feeding farms, on and on and on. And Zovena says, "What do you propose we eat?" Ceres ignored the viper. That's some telling wording. And Zovena goes on to say the super unreasonable, I guess, "Isn't that what I just said? Food, Your Highness. We need to know what, or rather who, we will be eating," which I guess was just a step too far. How dare you bring up the fact that food is required for survival. So Ceres uses her metal magic to pull a candelabra, slam it into Zovena's throat, and pull her to the ground and pin her by her throat to the ground with this candelabra. At which point, Kingfisher, whose perspective we're in right now, thinks telepathically to Ceres, "I'm pretty sure you just shattered her jaw." "She'll recover," was my mate's acerbic reply. Charming. And then she proceeds to pull a chair up, sit down, put her feet on Zovena's back while she is pinned by the throat to the ground, and continue to talk to Zovena with her pinned to the ground using her back as a footrest. And this whole time, Kingfisher is just thinking, what was she doing though? And why was it making me so fucking hot under the collar? He's just starting to get horny because he thinks it's hot to watch Ceres abuse her power against someone who had the audacity to bring up the necessity of sustenance. Calm as the center of a storm, she was. Brutal, cruel, lethal. Even I wouldn't have fucked with her in this moment, resting her feet on the back of a female whom most of this court was afraid of. I would have fucked her, though. I desperately, desperately wanted to do that. No shit, Fisher. No one is surprised. There was something deeply arousing about my mate owning her power. The minutes ticked by as Ceres heard the applicant speak, and she did not move from her position, feet resting on Zovena's back. Halfway through the proceedings, she fished out a dagger from the scabbard at her thigh and began cleaning her fingernails with the blade. Zovena didn't move. She didn't say a word. Is this supposed to be a flattering portrayal of Ceres? Are we supposed to hate Zovena as much as she apparently does for no reason? Because honestly, all Zovena has done is point out that Ceres doesn't have their best interests at heart, is not aligned with them as vampires, which she isn't, is a child in comparison to them, which she is. She's 25 to their 1,000 plus universally. How dare she, right? Like, what a bitch. Oh my God. I truly think that Callie Hart thought that all of us reading were going to hate Zovena as much as she does for some reason, and we're going to be celebrating this, but it just makes Ceres look tyrannical, drunk with power, absolutely unhinged. and not in a good way. You think this is a game, Zavanna shouted. You seem to confuse the dynamic between us, Zavanna. I am your master. I could command you to sit at my feet, and you would bow, knowing death chased the edge of my blade. You mistake my patience for weakness, for tolerance, but test me further and you will discover the limit of that patience. Except she hasn't been patient at all with Zavanna, literally ever, from the very beginning. From the moment Cerys had set foot into the Hall of Tears for her coronation, she had been playing a part. She'd been playing it well, too, but she wasn't acting now. She was as sick of Zavanna as I was. Impressive, since she'd known the female such a short time. And it goes on. This is in Kingfisher's head. And I just think, like, again, is this supposed to be appealing that she's not playing a part? This is just her genuine self coming through? Because her genuine self is actually the worst in every possible way and doesn't deserve to be in power at all. I also just think it's weird that all the vampires hate Cerys, but the only ones that she really spends time humbling and embarrassing and making feel small and useless are women. Interesting. So after that whole thing with Zavanna, after embarrassing her and so on, they dance together and have some cute lines, really endearing moments like Kingfisher saying, dancing is like fighting, Osha. It's also like fucking. And I pride myself on my skills in both of those arenas. I've impaled quite a few people on the end of my sword, he said conspiratorially, and I've lost count of how many battles I've fought in. I truly believe that they have a voyeurism kink because they're always getting hot and heavy in public. And here I was thinking I was doing a good job every time I made you beg for my gods and sinners. He was trying to kill me in public. Italicized, as if every time that they do this, it isn't in public. It's always in public. Pretty much always. And if it's not in public, if they are in a private room, it's explicitly when someone is standing right outside the door and can hear them. I feel like this was an opportunity for a moment. And of course, they didn't actually communicate and were talking in cross purposes because he keeps setting out these fancy dresses for her to wear and she keeps not wearing them and wearing her fighting leathers instead. She finally brings it up after who knows how long. The timeline in this book is so vague. I have no fucking idea how long it's been. I don't think Callie Hart knows either. You seem overly preoccupied with dresses, I said in a small voice. Do I? His voice was rough. And then she summarizes the fact that he keeps leaving dresses out. It makes me feel like you're trying to domesticate me. He stumbled to a halt right there in the middle of the dance floor. And how in all 5 hells would I do that, Osha? I'd have better luck trying to domesticate one of your hellcats. Not really a useful response to the concern she's bringing up, but sure. I don't know. Still the words didn't want to come. And I just feel like, again, you're so in love, your mates, your soulmates, you're going to spend an eternity together, and yet you can't even articulate to him. You don't feel comfortable telling him why it makes you feel uncomfortable and why you don't like that he keeps setting out dresses for you with this expectation that you'll dress up in these dresses that you don't feel comfortable in and you don't want to wear. Why is that not something that you can tell him? If you're really soulmates, he'll be able to hear that and accept that you actually don't want to wear them, or like you can get to the root of the issue together. It's a red flag to me that she feels incapable of finishing that sentence and actually fully communicating her concern to him. And then, of course, he just barrels right over what she's saying and goes into a monologue about why he's doing it and why he thinks it's actually totally fine and has nothing to do with domesticating her or him asserting his wants over hers, because he obviously knows best. Fisher stepped toward me, cupping my face in his hands. I don't want you to be anything other than what you already are, Cerys. The dresses are just, his brow furrowed, they're an invitation. Italicized. The life you lived in Zelvarin was hard. You had to do everything for yourself. I'm here now. And no, wait, let me finish. I'm here now, and just because I'm your mate and you are mine doesn't mean that I expect you to sit around looking pretty or put down your weapons and adopt a different way of life. I would never want that for you, but you don't have to be one thing here, Cerys. You can be many things. This is so condescending. Sorry, it's more condescending now that I'm rereading it than I even felt in the moment the first time. You can wear your leathers and fight every day of the year. I would never ask you not to, but sometimes, if you wanted to, you're allowed to soften, Cerys. You're allowed to stop baring your teeth at the world and take a breath, because I've got you. Like, maybe she wants to bare her teeth. Seems like that's kind of her thing, baring her teeth at everyone all the time. She clearly prefers to wear her fighting leathers. Maybe she doesn't want to soften sometimes or ever. That's okay. Presumably you fell in love with her as she is. That's what you're saying. It really annoys me. This scene really annoys me. And then of course she just completely lets go of her concern. He did have me, didn't he? He was the anchor that kept me from drifting away. Even here in this horrible place, he hadn't left my side. Again, she doesn't say anything. Fisher says, come on, come over here. I want to show you something. It won't take a second, then I'll get you out of here. I followed him. I would have gone anywhere with him in that moment, but we didn't travel far. He takes her to see a poisonous flower. I came to show you that sometimes it's the most beautiful things that are deadliest. A dress can't make you weak. It won't make you vulnerable. And he gets cut off because the big event at the ball happens. But I'm like, what if she just doesn't want to wear a dress? Like, I'm not sure that her concern is that wearing a dress will make her look weak necessarily. And you don't know either because he wouldn't let her fucking talk. Anyway, they get interrupted by the fact that all the vampires are turning back into fae or dying because Tal worked with the witch to poison them all, give them this reverse serum that could turn them back into fae, but they have to accept it to become fae, and if they don't, they'll just die. So like 90% of the high blood vampire court are dead now in a single fell swoop, and Tal is also on the edge of death, and that just feels like a really convenient way to eliminate this issue that we've been thinking about since the very beginning of the book. How are we going to handle the vampires? How are we going to keep the world safe for fae with the vampires? This is why we need Cerys to be the queen, because we need her to control them. Well, now it's not an issue because they're all either not vampires anymore or they're dead. Tal is about to die, but they decide to save him. They're really mad that he would do this without talking to them. He's not allowed to just go. And they've saved him from immediate death, but he is still not doing well. And then the witch shows up and they're pissed at the witch for being in on the plan. And she's like, yeah, unfortunately, Tal has to die because the witch mark that I used to make this happen is actually incredibly dangerous. And the plan was always that he dies right away. And if he doesn't die right away, the witch mark will open up a portal to a world full of demons and all of us will die. But of course, Cerys has a special magic rune from the creature Hazrax, and she's able to save his life and eliminate the danger of the mark all in one blinding flash of light because she's just so powerful. And now Tal gets to be with them again. Isn't that so great? We're all so happy. So after the vampire issue is resolved, very conveniently, Cerys and Kingfisher have a quiet moment together, you know, in the sunlight dappled grass. And I genuinely thought that we would finally have a moment of them connecting on an emotional level, having some romance, talking about anything other than sex or battles. And we almost got that moment. Almost. She asks him to hold her, and he comes over and holds her, and he's stroking her hair. So, he whispered, do you want to talk about the fact that there's a cure for the blood curse again? And just like that, my calm went up in smoke. Not really, no, I mumbled into his chest. He had to lean back and duck down before he could find my eyes. Why not? Why are you hiding from me? I'm not hiding. I'm processing, I groaned. And that just feels like therapy speak that doesn't belong here, to be totally honest. But then, of course, they're having this moment, they're connecting, they're talking about real things. This is the first moment in this entire book. We're on page 717, where I feel like there's maybe some actual love there. And it immediately turns sexual. Fisher raised both eyebrows, looking down at me, amusement playing over his features. My shirt had ridden up. His gaze trailed over my lower stomach, over the patch of bare skin I was now showing, a tiny smile lifting the corners of his mouth. He moved casually, resting his hands there, right where he was looking, his calloused palms rough against my skin, and I couldn't resist. What's that look on your face, Kingfisher? His eyebrows inched higher. Look? There's a look? I nodded, the grass rustling around my ears. There's a look. Oh, I don't know, he shrugged, looking off toward the river. My mate's ass is rubbing up against my and she's stretched out in front of me, hip bones showing. You like my hip bones? I love your hip bones, he corrected. I love the way your breasts look right now, straining against your shirt like that. If there's a look, it's because I'm horribly distracted by you, and I'm trying to talk about very serious things. Horribly distracted? I liked the sound of that. Slowly, I wriggled my ass, shimmying so that my shirt rode up a little higher. I don't want to talk about very serious things. I emphasized the words. And it just goes on from there, like, it's not the first time a beautiful female has tried to seduce him, and are you trying to lead me astray? Only a little, only a little. Like, again, can we have one moment without it turning sexual? Literally ever between them. Can we? And then they go right back out of that into serious talks about her fear of taking this because she thinks that maybe it will turn her back into a human and she will have a mortal lifespan and she will die and leave Kingfisher alone. And his reaction once again to something that is making her uncomfortable that she's worried about, like the domestication, making me wear dresses thing, where he just barreled over it with a monologue without addressing her concerns or fears. What would happen when I get old and die? I would go with you, Osha. He spoke as if I were insane to think he would do anything else. My heart squeezed tight as a fist in my chest. He was serious. I saw it in his eyes, and he wasn't slightly fazed about the prospect. I'm young in the eyes of this place, he said, and yes, there are plenty of things I still want to see and experience in this realm, but I wouldn't want to see any of it without you. Fisher, it isn't that simple. He crooked his head to one side. Isn't it? He asked softly. It seems very simple to me. Wouldn't you want to come and spend the afterlife with me if I died? Of course I would. Then let my love be equal to yours, he spoke with a tenderness that made tears prick my eyes. But what if there is no afterlife? He smiled sadly, letting his head hang for a second. When he looked back at me, his expression was all affectionate frustration. Just like that physicality of him like, and then he keeps talking. Then there isn't, he answered. There is only nothing, and that will still be better than being here without you. Stop talking. I cuffed my eyes with the back of my hands. You're going to make me cry. You're already crying, he whispered. Come on, come back up here. I need you. I need you. Words I had never thought I'd hear from him. Fisher had been nothing short of vile to me when he brought me through the Quicksilver into this realm. He had been cold and aggressive, and I had hated him with 99% of my heart. That is a fucking lie. That is a bald-faced lie, Saris. Do not lie to me. I was there. But the 1%? That had already been his, and now all of it was his, and he was holding on to me like I was the only thing that mattered in his entire fucking universe. Need still pulsed in the pit of my stomach, but it had shifted into something more now, something deeper. I didn't just want his body, I needed his mind and soul. Like, okay, I don't believe you. But again, like, that's not romantic to me. He's already so possessive all the time. It feels controlling to me, this idea of like, well, wouldn't you want to die with me if I died? You would want to live without me? And she's like, well, no, of course not. And he's like, yeah, so obviously I'm going to die if you die, and we're going to be together forever. You will never escape me. Like, it's just very red flags. I don't think it's romantic, personally. I just don't. I'm sorry. Danya's back 732 pages into this book. Don't worry, she still won't be relevant for the rest of this book. Women are not allowed to be on the page unless they are a foil to Saris and she's allowed to be mean to them, which will happen with Danya before the end of this book. Talking about how the rot is spreading rapidly, they need to run away, and they're like, also, P.S., we know about that special fancy telling the future book that you have, Saris, so maybe you should refer to it and see what it says to do. And she's like, oh my god, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot about the book. How did I forget? I don't know, Saris. How did you forget? How? Genuinely. And then Fisher, again, steps in with this. By all means, check it, Osha, Fisher said, but make sure it's your decision to do so. I have a feeling that my mother's guidance was designed specifically for you and you alone. My mate looked to Lorith. I know you don't mean any harm by the suggestion, but she shouldn't be compelled. Shut the fuck up, Fisher. Are you kidding me? The rot is spreading. It's killing the land. A bunch of people are dying. Your friends are like, maybe we should check just in case your mom told us how to survive this, like use any resource at our disposal before we just run away at full speed. And Fisher has the audacity to be like, don't tell my mate what to do. That should be her choice. Like, fuck off. He's so insufferable. He and Saris deserve each other at this point. I cannot stand either of them. And then again, Danya's used to be the villain because all the women have to be villains. She thinks that it's worth it to kill the fire sprites for the Brimstone so that they can defeat the rot. And of course, she is the one to have that perspective when everyone else thinks that that's absolutely horrific and they couldn't possibly kill the adorable little fire sprites. Because again, it always has to be the women who are villains in this world. She accuses Kingfisher of having forgotten how to lead. But if Danya spoke to Fisher one more time like that, I was going to fucking spear her to the fucking wall. Great. And then we have the reconciliation between Saris and Hayden, where he basically just apologizes and says how he doesn't want to be a burden. And so she deigns to accept his apology, and now they're fine. And that's it. Great. And the Hazrax shows up again. She is so fucking rude to the Hazrax every time they interact. And all this Hazrax has done so far, other than look creepy, is offer her help, given her gifts that have helped her save lives, helped her make runes that she needs. This creature is just helping her at every turn, and all she does is be so incredibly rude to them again and again. I did love that they told her, "You're a mannerless thing, aren't you? Quite feral." But this is her response. "I don't have time for small talk. There are 15,000 warriors waiting on the other side of the estate. The rot infecting this land is almost on top of us. There are sick people here. My friends need to be moved to safety, and you have just literally dragged me away from 10 things that I urgently need to attend to, so forgive me if I'm not inclined to observe social etiquette." Girl, you were standing outside talking to your brother, calmly, quietly. Your brother went back inside, and the Hazarak showed up. It's not like you were in the middle of an important meeting, and you also just spent a whole chapter hanging out on a grassy knoll with Fisher, talking about sex and waxing poetic about how you want to die together. So I think you have time for a single conversation with this super powerful ancient being who keeps just giving you things to help you. You know, you're only the third person I've broken my silence for in over a millennium. I have to say, you're not a very stimulating conversation partner. Hazarax just became my favorite character. So the Hazarax offers a rune that is their name that doesn't grant her magic the same way other runes do. The ability my rune grants you is complicated. It allows you to undo or maybe break. And if I don't want this rune, if I don't want your name inked into my skin, what then? Like, again, she hates being called a child. And then she acts like this. "You would return a gift, and such a powerful one too. You'll be grateful for it soon enough, believe me. You should already be grateful for it. It saved your friend's life last night, Tal." What did it want? A fucking thank you card? "I don't want to owe you anything," I told it. Like, probably doesn't want a thank you card. You could just say thank you, though. Like, the Hazarax keeps helping you. I don't know why. You're so fucking ungrateful and so rude and hostile all the time. They're running away from the rot. They are going through a portal, and it's really funny because they go through the portal in waves, and when they get through, they have to fight to the death, and they're all covered in blood. And then Kingfisher never comes through with Onyx, and, you know, understandably, Ceres is a little concerned. But then her friends are like, "Hey, maybe let's keep moving. Like, this is a dangerous spot. We just had to fight for our lives. We all barely survived. Let's get somewhere safe quickly." And she's like, "Hang on, let me consult the book." But then she has to skim through everything she's already read because apparently she's never heard of a bookmark. Yeah, it is. "What are you doing, Ceres? We need to go," Foley called. Carrion hadn't left my side. "What does it say?" It took a moment to flip through the front half of the book. Come on, come on, come on. It was here. It had to be. There was no way the book didn't have the information I needed. An eternity passed while I scanned through lines of text relating to alchemy and my power. My breath stalled when I found the page I'd read back with the others at Kalish. "Read on at the White Cliffs. Adina was telling me where to go, where to find him, and everything was going to be okay." Like, again, a bookmark. You're scanning through the whole first half of the book while standing there covered in blood, waiting for more enemies to show up. Are you kidding me? So stupid. Are traveling more. They're meeting people who will not be relevant in 5 milliseconds, so it's not worth talking about them. Many more side characters who don't get any development. She continues to regularly think that her brother has it so good and is living in blissful ignorance, and how dare he keep asking to be let in on what's happening at all. He's going to wish he could go back to before he knew any of this. And it's like, Ceres, if you were in his shoes, you would want to know what's happening. You would be so pissed off to be in all these dangerous situations without anyone informing you what's going on. So obviously, use your empathy muscle. I'm sure it exists. It's very atrophied at this point. Try to understand where your brother's coming from. Like, he just got here. He has had no time to adjust. He does not know what's happening. Maybe try to help him transition a little bit and stop treating him like he personally caused your life to be horrific when all he did was exist. Also, we get the reveal that Zilvarin City, which is a wheel shape, cut into pies for the different sections, is actually a giant sigil. Because Foley schooled Ceres earlier on in the book about how a circle is the foundation of magic. It's the most basic symbol or sigil. And Zilvarin City is a big circle. Oh my god, the whole city is magic. So that's a big reveal. I guess that's how Madra has power and is creating these new fancy zombie feeders. Also, Zovena never gets a redemption arc. We never talk to her again after saying that she keeps weeping and wailing and is in hysterics after being turned back into a fae. She just dies off page. So now she's dead. What a journey she had. as one of the only female characters that's actually in the story throughout, other than our protagonist. And Tal is upset about it. He was in love with her, but he's decided he's going to live because he got to see the sunrise for the first time in centuries, and he quite likes the sun. And Cerys gives him a god sword, and it's called Redemption, and that seems very appropriate, and he's gonna be their buddy again now that he's Fae. So good for him, I guess. And I love that they keep killing people indiscriminately, saying they were working for bad people, so obviously they're terrible people, and I don't feel sorry for murdering them all. But then they keep coming back to Tal and talking about how, yeah, he worked for a bad guy, but it wasn't his choice. He was forced to do bad things. He didn't want to do bad things. He's not a bad guy just because he worked for a bad guy. But everyone else who's ever worked for anyone bad in this world is automatically terrible and deserves to die, and no one's going to feel bad about it. Really airtight logic there. And then, in the last couple hundred pages, Cerys tries to go find Fisher. She finds him, and he's being slowly pulled into a tree, basically, by evil King Daddy from book 1, who is his stepdad. And he's there again. Yeah, you forgot about him, because he didn't come up the whole book. But he's back, and he wants to trap Kingfisher forever, so he doesn't have to worry about him coming for his throne. And Cerys uses Kingfisher's godsword to stab him, to incapacitate him for a minute, because she doesn't get hurt by iron because she controls metals. And I guess because his godsword likes her, because she's Kingfisher's mate, it decides not to murder her on contact, even though that's kind of the thing that godswords do. It's like the one main thing that the godswords do is that they kill anyone who touches them who isn't the person that they're... Anyway, so she uses Kingfisher's godsword to pin King Stepdaddy down for a minute, and then she uses Kingfisher's true name to release him from this magic tree that wants to torture him forever. And guess what Kingfisher's real name is? I'll give you 3 guesses. I'll give you 5 guesses. I bet none of you will guess. Kaidan. What in the Gen Alpha tragedy kind of name is this? If your name is Kaidan, I am so sorry. I'm sure you're a lovely person. But this is wild to me. Like, Kingfisher is a silly name, and I think everyone universally on the planet made fun of it when Quicksilver came out, but Kaidan? Really? Okay, so that's his real name. He gets freed because of it. And then evil stepdaddy is like, well, now I know your true name so I can control you. And Cerys is like, ha ha ha, little did you know that I have all these special runes from the creature, the Hazrax, who I still continue to hate and have a lot of hostile feelings toward, but he gave me all these really useful runes that I will never thank him for, because what does he want, a fucking thank you card? And I did an Uno reverse, so now you can't use his name for anything. Ha ha, you didn't see that coming. And then they decapitate him to try to slow him down a little bit. In the meantime, his sidekick, who Cerys fought earlier, in case you forgot, you probably did because it was irrelevant to everything else, but they fought earlier, he's back again, and he's trying to stab Cerys in the midst of all of this because he's really loyal to his king. And Onyx is there and jumps in the path and takes the hit and dies. So Onyx, her little fox, is dead now. And they run away through a portal to escape, knowing that the king is not dead, but it'll take him a while to find his head and reattach it to his body. So maybe they have a bit of a head start. And Cerys is understandably pretty upset about Onyx being dead. And Kingfisher is a little discombobulated and sad as well. And the Hazrax shows up, and she keeps asking the Hazrax, please tell me if Onyx's spirit is nearby. And Cerys uses her undo rune to undo Onyx's death. But that is such an extreme use of it that it's going to completely use it up. She'll never be able to use it again. She can't use it to help any of the Fae that might still be in danger, that are missing, in comas, whatnot. She brings Onyx back from the dead. So Onyx is now alive again. But she's lost that ability to undo things that she'd already used to save Tal's life and maybe could have used many more times, because she used it on someone who was already dead, and that wasn't what it was meant to be used for. And then they catch up with Renfis after all this time. Renfis has been gone for so long, was missing for so long. Turns out he was called by an oath to protect a gate that leads into a world with dragons. And the dragons have brimstone. Isn't that convenient? They need brimstone, and they travel through and meet a dragon who is pissed off at Kingfisher because Kingfisher killed this dragon's offspring, apparently. And then they get strung up, and it seems like they're probably going to be executed. And then turns out the big reveal at the very end of the book is that Kingfisher is related to these 2 demigods who show up and are taunting them, because Kingfisher's a demigod And his dad is a god and is not dead, like he kept saying, even in his own thoughts, in his own internal monologue over the course of 2 books. He lied to us that whole time and to himself. His dad is not dead. He exists in this other world with dragons and is presumably a god. And he's going to go talk to his dad. And that's why he has shadow powers. So that's the big reveal at the end. Amazing. And it's a cliffhanger. Like, we have not resolved the rot whatsoever. We haven't resolved the fancy feeders. Evil stepdaddy is still an issue. Madra is still an issue. I get that it's an ongoing series, but that was such a inconclusive, abrupt ending after almost 1,000 sprawling pages of very little. And I just can't believe that Kingfisher's real name is Kaiden. After all of that, after all that buildup throughout the course of the book. I also felt like Sarris had one moment. This was the one line in the entire book where I thought Sarris had something interesting to say, talking about what it feels like to lose someone you love. And she ruined it at the end with the most cliche alliteration that doesn't fit at all. What does it feel like to lose someone that you love so dearly? It feels like trying to make sand flow backwards in an hourglass. It feels like being surrounded by people and being the only one who can't find the air in the room. It's drowning on dry land. It's the hollow ache of something that you know from that moment on will always be missing. It is a pain so acute and incurable that poets, pirates, and politicians alike die from it, and it never ends. Poets, pirates, and politicians? You were so close to saying something profound about the experience of grief, and then you had to bring up poets, pirates, and politicians. How do you even know about pirates? You live in a desert. Do you know what a pirate is? Also, the description of her using her magic to save Onyx is written like she's giving birth. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it was kind of weird. It was strange. Also, oh my god, I forgot about this. I did as my king commanded. I stepped into the pool. As soon as my bare feet touched the tainted ore, I knew I was going to die. I was transported to another realm, a place, ellipses. Fisher trailed off, as if he'd reached the midpoint of his sentence and found the rest of the words suddenly missing. You're telling me, you're showing me that he stopped mid-sentence with an ellipses, and then you are explicitly telling me right after that he trailed off, and then saying it's as if he'd reached the midpoint of his sentence and found the rest of the words suddenly missing. That's literally what just happened. Well, I feel like I am losing it. I am losing my mind. What is happening right now? I think like we're in the last 5% of the book at this point. I think Callie Hart was just fighting for her life, trying to wrap this up, and none of this book was edited at all, but the end is just a mess. Also, after a while of using Kingfisher still as his name, even after revealing his true name to free him, Sarris decides that she's actually done with Kingfisher now. Kaiden is his true name, and that's what she will be using from now on. Solemnly, Kingfisher bowed his head, but no, even as I watched him, something shifted in my mind. He wasn't Kingfisher anymore. He was Kaiden. Undeniably, the name fit him. It was like discovering the long-lost missing piece of a puzzle, like snapping it into place to complete an image, and finally seeing and understanding it in its entirety. Yeah, that's what finding the long-lost missing piece of a puzzle does. Again, why do we have to explain the similes so many times? Like, we get it the first time. He could only ever be Kaiden to me now, and he was ready to face whatever awaited us on the other side of this door. Like, okay, does he want to be called Kaiden? No communication, no conversation, no asking him, do you prefer Kingfisher? Do you prefer Kaiden? Even just like in general asking him how he's feeling about having his true name revealed and knowing what it is now. Like, no, she's just decided it's going to be Kaiden from now on. And she also gives him the nickname Kai. So that's a thing now in the last 4% of this book. I also love how they're going through this door and she asks, where does it go? What's the realm called? Only Fisher knew the answer to that question. Also, she literally just said on the last page that he's only ever going to be Kaiden to her now. And then she called him Fisher 2 paragraphs later. Anyway, only Fisher knew the answer to that question. He had gone there as a boy. The troubled look on my mate's face didn't inspire confidence as he admitted, it's never been given an official name here. The pantheon of undergods and the dragons they breed there call it Diaxis. But personally, I've always called it Hell. Wow, so creative. The most inventive possible name you could use for a place full of undergods and dragons. Okay. Then there's a literal single line chapter, chapter 51, called The Obvious Ellipses. And then it says Kaiden Greystar Finvara, which is his full name. Good Lord. And then all it says is, I fucking hate dragons. That's all of chapter 51. I wish I were kidding. Then we get to Hell. She starts calling him Kai. Again, no conversation about his name and his preferences whatsoever. I'm totally on board with accepting someone's name change wholeheartedly and committing to it. That's great and supportive, with the presumption that the person wants you to do that. Like, no conversation has been had. Also, they see this huge monster, and again, the last chapter was literally just, I fucking hate dragons. And in the next chapter, we're back to Ceres's point of view. She's describing this giant, scary creature. The name of the monster bounced around inside my head. I didn't dare speak it aloud. Like, we know that they're dragons. He explicitly said that they breed dragons here. And then the next chapter was him just saying, I fucking hate dragons. And now you're acting like you couldn't possibly say the word of what the creature is that we all know is a dragon. And then 2 paragraphs later, the temperature climbed, fresh waves of sweat breaking across my brow and evaporating as the dragon slowly propped itself up on taloned elbows. Like, now you're just casually dropping it in a sentence. It's fine. You're accepting that it's a dragon now. What is the point of anything? The other must speak. Me. I was the other. Yes, there are 2 of you, and Kaiden has been the one speaking. You are the... I am Kaiden stopped himself. Old habits died hard. It was true. I had made the shift and referred to him by his true name easily enough, but something inside of me knew it was right. His whole life, Kaiden had only known himself as Kingfisher. How much of a person's identity resided in their name? How much of their soul? A strange thought. Kaiden's soul was the same as it had ever been. His personality, too. But something fundamental had changed inside him. It was subtle. It was because he was free. The beast had missed us, on purpose, it seemed. It could have easily engulfed us if it had wanted to. The fact that it wasn't roasting us to char and bone must have been intentional. Yeah, that's what on purpose means. Good Lord. We're almost done. Almost. Can we make it? I don't know. Who are you? Crave choked. Only half-gods may wield shadows. Kaiden drew in a deep breath, ignoring the male's question. I've come for a dragon, as is my right. Summon our father. Tell him I've come to make a trade. And that's the end of this totally infuriating book. What a journey this has been. I don't even know what to say at this point. I think it's all been said. What was the point of that? What did we learn? What did we do? Did we make any progress? Any character that died is a character that we only met in this book anyway, so we weren't attached to them. None of the characters have progressed meaningfully from who they were at the end of Quicksilver, except, I guess, Kingfisher, because now he knows that his name is Kaiden, and now we know he's a demigod, but I guess he already knew that, so it's really not that much of a transition for him. Ceres is the queen, but she was already half fae, half vampire at the end of Quicksilver, and she still is that. So that was almost 1,000 pages. What a journey it has been for us. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments on Brimstone. I don't know what else to say. My rating is 1 star. What a travesty that was. I probably won't read any more books in this series unless I become morbidly curious and decide to put myself through torture once again. I just can't believe that this is somehow messier and more poorly written and less edited and more nonsensical than the first book. How can that even be possible? I hope you enjoyed the several dramatic reenactments of the dialogue. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. I hope that this allowed you to experience the plot and development of the characters, or lack thereof, in Brimstone without having to actually suffer through almost 1,000 pages of this ebook or a physical book. I feel so sorry for all the people who ordered special editions of this, especially because the spelling and grammar is absolutely atrocious. No editor ever looked at any of this at any point. I would bet my life savings on it. Absolutely ridiculous that this is traditionally published at this quality. I can't believe it, to be totally honest. I mean, I've seen a lot of poorly edited books recently coming out that are traditionally published, but this just takes the cake. It feels like it was written in 3 weeks and then no one read it again, not even Callie once, to make sure that it was internally consistent and didn't contradict itself. Just a few sort of lingering threads that I just wanted to bring up before I go. Adina, Kingfisher / Kaiden's mom, no one seems concerned with the fact that she is literally possessing her daughter. Is anyone going to look into that? No one's trying to contact her again Kingfisher has no interest in contacting her again or trying to. I don't know. Seems weird that they barely reacted to that. Also, Foley is so built up through the first part of this book, and then we meet him and he chides Saris a few times and pops up here and there for a single line, but he's really almost totally irrelevant for most of the book. What was the point of that? I guess he'll be relevant in the next book, maybe, but all of the side characters from book 1 basically did nothing in this book. Danya was gone for almost the whole book. Lorith was gone for most of the book. He probably had the most to do because he was training Saris for a bit. Ren just disappeared for most of the book. Carrion was there the whole time, but so underutilized. I don't know. I just feel like the side characters are totally irrelevant in this world. I also feel like killing the vampires off like that or transitioning them back to being fae felt like such a cop-out. It felt like such a waste of time. So much of the first part of the book was about how do we control the vampires? How do we get them to do what we want and the land safe for fae? And then the answer is just, we'll just eradicate vampire kind in the blink of an eye. Seems awfully convenient, but sure. Zovina's whole character arc is the worst. I hate how she's portrayed, hate how everyone is constantly calling her dramatic or that she's having hysterics or throwing a tantrum. I hate that she dies off page. I hate that she is constantly humiliated by Saris for bringing up totally reasonable concerns about her leadership. And I also just really hate Saris in general in this book. I feel like she is so hostile and aggressive and cruel and shitty to everyone around her all the time. And why is she like that? Like she's kind of the worst all the time. It's really quite painful to follow her. Again, lets power get to her head. She is so arrogant. She is so holier than thou all the time. And then has the audacity to say later that she has never acted like she belongs here and that she knows what she's doing. And just like, shut up, Saris. Shut up. And then Saris and Kingfisher, obviously that is the center of the story. That is supposed to be the heart of the story, literally. And there just was so little heart. I already touched on it so many times, but their relationship is very sex forward. And that's fine, but there just feels like there's no foundation under it. And I found that very sad. There were opportunities, there were moments where we almost got to see something more real. And it just was every time interrupted by a sex scene. And that is just really too bad, I think. So yeah, I think that's it. Let me know your thoughts on Brimstone. Thanks for being here. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if there are other books you'd want me to do full spoiler reading vlog sort of recaps like this one of. Did this actually work to pull me out of my reading slump? Honestly, I think it kind of did, just because it was so poorly done that I feel like my expectations for my next read are now in the basement. So anything I read will feel great after this. So I actually do think it helped. And leave an emoji that represents this series to you so far. What emojis make you think of Quicksilver and Brimstone so far? Leave those in the comments down below to let me know you watched this entire, probably gargantuan video. Thank you for watching the whole thing, genuinely. I appreciate you so much. Thank you again to Freo for sponsoring this video. Check out Freo's amazing spring sale deals by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link in my description box. And don't forget to use my code 30bride for an extra 30% off almost all products, stackable with sale items. Thank you again to Freo for sponsoring this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.